curry there, so I was excited. My wife doesn't like curry, so when I had out the opportunity, switched over to salad. Well, thank we have come and thanks for participating in the process. So, I will see you. I'm Tom Scott Boyd. Usually at 6:30. Because I can have this picture up, but nobody's really wants that. And if we were good, we could show a little video. But we don't have so we showed the same video. So we will start with the I don't think anyone knew them. Probably Jeremy. So this doesn't pop up No, I've got that link. Do you have the power to read it? It might take you out of here. Sure. Sometimes there's too many people in the room on it, or is it plugged in? Yeah, even though it's a different login, it's the same thing. Look at that, all that bragging and wires have some bragging. Wow.
Ready to go? Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Lake Forest City Hall. I'm going to call to order the regular meeting of the Lake Forest City Council and the Lake Forest Housing Authority. It's 6:30, and let the record reflect that all council members are here with the exception of Councilmember Robinson. First up, we are going to have the invocation. Notes. There we go. Is Father Thomas Naval here? Not seeing him. Councilmember Basil, would you please?
Be my pleasure.
Thank
You guys will please bow your head. Father God, we thank you for this wonderful day, and we thank you for an audience filled with some of the most dedicated people we have in the city of Lake Forest. I pray, God, for your special blessing upon every member that is here today. Lord, may this meeting be peaceful, and let everyone say what they need to be said with dignity and with grace, and let us treat each other with respect that you know we need to give to each other. We thank you in all things. In your precious name, amen.
Amen. Thank you. Pledge of Allegiance. I understand we have a troop here, so if I could have Troop 7272 provide the Pledge of Allegiance, we'd be honored. You can go ahead and use that microphone to...
Audience salute. For those not in uniform, please place your right hand over your heart. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. 2.
Thank you very much. Give them a hand.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I have an announcement.
Yes.
Unfortunately, we're having technical difficulties with our video stream, so our Facebook live stream will not be available today for this meeting. And so there is a notice on our agenda face sheet that does say that Facebook Live is only available to the extent that it's technically available. So we won't be having that tonight. I just wanted to let everybody know.
Okay. Thank you for that. Next is the closed session report from the city attorney.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we do have one item to report out of closed session. The council has voted unanimously to file an amicus brief in the appeal of the Martin v. Boise decision to the U.S. Supreme Court. That's all.
Thank you very much. And as I mentioned earlier, we're off of 2 agendas tonight. The green one, which if you come here, this is the typical agenda we have, but we have one overlapping item in this salmon colored, orange color, whatever you prefer, agenda. There's one item here, and that's why we are opening both meetings simultaneously to address that one item. I believe it's item 16 on the green agenda. Double check that. Yes, so item 16 on the green agenda corresponds to item 3 on this other color agenda. So when you make your public comments, since both of these bodies are open simultaneously, we would accept comments either to the city council for items that are not on the agenda, as well as items for the Lake Forest Housing Authority, again, for items not on the agenda. Okay, before we get to public comments, we have some presentations. Colleagues?
I'd like to move items number 4 and 5 presentations, please.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please go ahead and vote. Bless you.
Motion approved 4-0 with Councilmember Robinson absent.
Thank you. So item 4, recognition of the 2019 4th of July Parade volunteer sponsors and award winners. I'm going to turn it over to our staff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of staff. This will be presented by Recreation Manager Laura Lissett.
Good evening, Mayor Tedmer and fellow council members. Tonight, I'm here to present the parade committee along with the award winners and parade sponsors from this year's 28th annual We Love a Parade. We have a short video here. I'm hoping that it works. A video segment displaying this year's winners. And as I call you up, please come up and I'll have you take a picture with council. So if you guys want to come down as well, we'll pass out the awards and do a photo op for all those that are winners. Go ahead. The first winner we have is the Best of Lake Forest Award, which goes to the 1902 American Steam Fire Engine.
So do you want us all to come down?
Yeah, if you guys want to.
Okay.
That way we could do it all.
Do I get a kiss?
Congratulations.
Thank you. Fun job.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. You're welcome. Great community you got here.
You know, he might kiss you.
I will not. Yeah, that's right. Understand. So you want to do photo op now?
Sure, we'll
So
do
why don't
photo op.
you,
That way each group
here.
has one.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Photograph, huh?
Sure, why not?
I didn't get my kiss, Mayor.
You're going to wait a while.
3, 2, 1.
And are we going to do a class photo as well?
No, just one at
Just
a
the
time.
one at a time?
Yep,
Okay,
perfect.
thank you. Thank you very much. Am I aware? Okay.
The next award is the Best of Community Outreach Award, which goes to Abiding Savior Lutheran Church and School.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Here you are. Hold it. Where do you want to go? You guys can stand in the middle.
Okay.
We don't fight.
Thank you guys for blessing us. Oh, thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Stand here. Here, you're in the middle. You hold it.
Thank you.
The next award is the Mayor's Award for Uncle Sam and Snoopy's Biplane.
Step back here and we'll get a picture with you.
Said you didn't want to give it up. Wait. Hold on.
Oh, it's more, huh?
I'm not very good at this. I probably have 6,000 pictures.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Our most creative award goes to Cub Scout Pack 629.
If I can remember. We're going to go. Scouts. There we go. Scout way, right? to hold this.
hold it,
Not
Gabe?
me.
Want to hold it?
Why don't you guys can
both
both
hold
hold it. Share that right in the middle. Why don't you scoot on in? I'll be on the outside over here.
Over here, Dan.
Wait, hold on, guys over there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Our next award is the Best Vehicle Award, which goes to the Salvin Family Tribute Ride.
Thank you so much. Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Official photo. There you go. Thank you very much.
The Most Patriotic Award goes to our very own Etnies Skate Park.
That was fancy, Nice.
I like those PJs.
Have a little fun.
You guys,
Did you just come straight from work?
Yeah, this is average day.
thank you guys.
The Best Dance Group goes to Grupo Folclorio Nuevo Amanecer.
All right, hands up.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. There you are. You get what you need? Okay.
The Sandy Mink Legacy Award goes to our 1st Law Enforcement Battalion USMC. Accepting for this group is Lieutenant Colonel Scott Welch, who is the battalion commander, Sergeant Major Pascal Dasilas, and First Lieutenant Ashley Spikes.
Over here in the middle.
I'll let you, who wants to do the honors? Great, thank you very much.
Our next award is our Heroes Award to a new entry, the California Fire Museum.
So thank you, you early birds. Oh, you early birds. Yeah. We weren't late. You don't even know this.
You guys know the
Mayor,
drill.
where do you want
You guys know the drill. You guys fight over this. Yeah. There, right here. Over in the middle.
What, because I'm short?
I didn't say that. Over here, back right over here. Come over here. There we go. That's it.
Thank you.
Nice.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for participating.
And last but not least, our Best Novelty Group, another new entry, Kanata Cali. I didn't want to mess that name up.
Thank you for participating.
Very much. Hi.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Do you get it in the front here?
All right.
Mayor,
That's excellent.
Mayor, can I make a suggestion?
Who wants to? There we go.
Come on, guys, come on back this way, guys. Come on back this way.
We're gonna all, you're trying to break the whole thing? Okay, hold on. We're gonna go back for a larger,
Oh, okay.
a larger group picture.
That's better.
That one. Move that mic up.
Unless you want to, we're going to do the parade committee. Yeah, you guys can stay if you want. Yeah, 5 more minutes. Okay. Sorry, I know, right?
No, it's fine.
I would also like to thank our sponsors that contribute and make such a difference in the success of this Lake Forest Parade. I would like to call up our red, white, and blue sponsor, as always, CR&R.
So much. Appreciate it. There you are.
We could have done it without you.
We also had 4 other sponsors. Our Stripes sponsors, Code Gauchos, NutriShop, Chick-fil-A, and Neighboring. Those certificates will be given to them at a later date.
Okay, I'm just gonna give them all back.
This year was Deputy Mark Froome and his team's first year together, assisting with the parade. I would like to acknowledge him and all of his efforts, along with the Stars and the Explorers. They did an amazing job at securing all the streets and providing support to all the entries and dignitaries. Thank you to Police Services for all your effort to make the parade such a huge success.
Bring him back.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah, Clint, you'll be back there. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
We appreciate you guys.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Sir, thank you very much. Thank you. Last time I saw you were getting written by a dog.
I'm all yelling at is this one. Why don't we get make it 2 rows, make some of the guys and we'll get them all in. The tall guys in the back.
I can get it. Whatever. I'll let him decide. Yep, I can get everybody in without
got it.
anyone going down.
What's that? I'm sorry.
One more. Okay.
Thank you guys.
No. Another group who made this event all possible was Justin Kirk and PV Maintenance. Once again, an outstanding group of people that didn't miss anything, from the coordination of the street closures with myself and John Irish at 3:30 in the morning, to the more than prompt neighborhood cleanup and street openings at 1:30 p.m., which is still earlier than expected and projected to the neighborhoods. Congratulations and thank you. I know that they could not be here, and I will accept this award on their behalf due to the emergency that's going on in the city right now. I would also like to thank Care Ambulance for providing service at a moment's notice if necessary.
How are you?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And now I would just like to thank the parade committee. If you could just come up and we'll take one group picture. Greg Allen, Noma Bates, Ralph Bates, Valerie Black Holly, Marion Duffy, Patty and Rich Farina, Larissa Fella Clark, Kevin Graham, Sharon Hansen, Russell Harper, Ricky LaCourte, Loretta Heron, Bob Holtzclaw, David Hosmer, John Irish, Rosalie Irish, Alberto Lopez, Jean Master Pietro, Tibby Montgomery, Doris Neal, Rosa Patterson, Matt Rail, Kathleen Rotolo, Ray Silva, Jeff Simon, Rich Stein, Eric and Henriette Taverson, Lisa Tooley, Connie and Mary Visconti, Josh Viscay, and Charlotte Zapola. No, because we'll get them out later. Thank you, and that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
I'm just going to say big thank you to Laura for all of her efforts. Remember popping into those meetings every once in a while, and she just ran them like she knew what she was doing. I mean, you guys had everything under control. All of you working together, what a great team you are.
All right. So that brings us to public comment, and again, this will be public comment for both.
Mr. Mayor? I'm sorry, we have another presentation, just a quick one.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, my apologies.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council.
Yep.
This presentation, this is our introduction of our new recreation supervisor. Community Services Department is pleased to announce the newest member of the department, Recreation Supervisor Ken Sipes. Ken will be overseeing the sports division at the sports park, and he brings over 20 years of experience to the job. He's worked in all over the place: Irvine, Costa Mesa, El Segundo, Chandler, Arizona, and San Clemente. He's also on the board of SMAF, which is a great acronym. It's Southern California Municipal Athletic Federation, SMAF. Please
God
join
bless
us in
you.
welcoming Ken Sipes.
Welcome to Lake Forest. Public comment? All right,
We have several speakers tonight.
very good. Do you want me to go ahead and
Oh, sure.
give my little opener here? So we've reached the public comment section of the agenda. As a reminder, if you'd like to participate, please fill out the blue speaker card, turn it into the city clerk, and your name will be called. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. When you're called to speak, you see 3 red lights at the podium, first being green. When you have 30 seconds left, the light will turn yellow, and when your time has expired, the light will turn red. At that time, your public comment period has ended, and the council requests that you conclude your comments. Madam Clerk.
If we can please start with Andrea Alexander, followed by David Bass.
Good evening, council members and staff, and all present here tonight. I'm talking to you tonight about a couple of issues. One is very timely because you have something on the agenda about affordable housing, and that's one of the issues I wanted to talk about. The Canyon Democratic Club has actually has a resolution in support of shelter and permanent supportive housing facilities in South Orange County for the homeless. And I've talked to you about this before, and there's a lot of information in this resolution, which was actually put in your mailboxes. We met with Deborah Rose and some of the other staff, Ann Owens and I, about a couple of weeks ago, and gave her the resolution and wanted it delivered to you so that you would have a chance to read it. I just want to go over a couple of items. In 2017, UCI did a study that found that the majority of homeless population in Orange County are long-term residents of the county. Another reason why there's a problem is there's difficulty securing jobs with sustainable wages and difficulty finding affordable housing were the predominant factors precipitating homelessness. The per capita cost of permanent supportive housing is 50% lower than for providing services to the chronically street homeless. 51,000 versus 100,000. So if all of Orange County's chronically homeless were housed in permanent supportive housing, there would be an estimated cost savings of $42 million. That's a significant amount of money. So therefore, be it resolved that the Canyon Democratic Club, which I would like to say we're 380 members strong, and we're not just Democrats. We have Republicans in our club. We have NPPs, no party preference in our club. We even have an American Independent in our club. So 380 voices are speaking to you. I'm here on their behalf. The Canyon Democratic Club supports the cities of South Orange County in their efforts to provide affordable housing, emergency shelters, transitional housing, and permanent supportive housing for the homeless individuals residing within South Orange County. I'm pleased to see that you have on your agenda tonight a proposal for partnering with a company to come up with a solution for affordable housing in our area. That's wonderful. Mayor Tittemeyer, you were at the Homeless 101 presentation that Ann Owens and I put on for the community. And we've had a great response from that. People are getting very active in this cause. And I see that another one is being offered, and I will have flyers on the back table for this. And I encourage everyone to go to this. It incorporates the UCI information and the United Way information, and I think Jonathan has been to it and understands the value of this. Understanding homelessness is the key to solving the problem. We don't want to be LA and we don't want to be San Francisco, so let's nip this in the bud. Thank you.
Excuse me, got a quick question?
Yes.
The event, the 101 that's coming up?
It's Thursday, August 22nd from 7 to 9 p.m. and it's at the Second Baptist Church on Lambert Street in Lake Forest. The flyers will be in the back on the table.
I'm only concerned that they may be gone by the time I get there.
Oh, you've already been. You want to go to it again?
I might.
Oh, cool. Way cool.
So could I ask, could you leave one right over here, and that way they make sure it gets a copy to us?
Certainly.
We appreciate that. Thank you
And
so
I
much.
appreciate your spreading the word.
Thank you very much.
David Bass, followed by Margie Wakeham.
Honorable Mayor and council members, thank you for the opportunity to comment tonight. The subject of my comments is housing development and impact on the schools. A developer pays a fee to Saddleback Valley Unified School District for new home construction, and the current fee is $3.79 a square foot, which means for about a 2,000 square foot home, that's close to $7,500. Based on information on the school's website, at July 1, 2016, the district had an unspent balance of these fees at $20 million. And 2 years later, $30 million. During that time, $10.9 million was collected and $1.1 million was spent, which over half of that was for consultants. The amounts for 2018-19 have not yet been posted. So what is the school capacity? Periodically, and it seems every 2 years, the district issues a report. Basically, it seems to me to justify an increase in the development fees. And in that report is some data called enrollment and capacity of impacted facilities. Now, the school or the consultants select these schools, and so I'm just listing the ones they select, the elementary schools, which is Foothill Ranch, La Madera, Lake Forest, Olivewood, Portola Hills, Rancho Cañada, and Santiago. Based on the capacity contained in the report, and it hasn't changed over the 3 or 4 years, and the 2018-19 enrollment, there's a shortage of 70 seats, with the largest shortage at Foothill Ranch Elementary School. Given this district's lack of providing additional capacity for the students, when there is a demonstrated need and the funds are available, what is the city to do? I recommend that the city strongly consider a development at Nacossie that has less impact on schools, especially Foothill Ranch Elementary School, the elementary school with the greatest capacity shortage, which for 2018-19 was 277 students. There are many choices that have lower impact on schools, one of which I believe there is a real need for, is senior housing, a combination of detached and attached units, apartments, and an independent living and assisted living facility. It seems to me, I've looked at the 55 plus community in Rancho Mission Viejo, and they seem to be fairly popular based on the availability of what's left. That concludes my comments and my suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Margie Wakeham, followed by Madeline, her niece.
Good evening, council members and staff, mayor. I'm Margie Wakeham, and I'm the executive director of Families Forward for about another 6 weeks. And I'm here tonight to thank you for the support that you've given Families Forward. In the almost 30 years that I have been with Families Forward, I think we have served hundreds, if not thousands, of Lake Forest residents, and being just a near neighbor over the curtain, or whatever you want to call it, into Irvine. We've had the pleasure of working with many of your staff and many of you as well. I'm here tonight to introduce to you our new CEO, who was chosen by the board of directors a few weeks ago, Madeline, her niece. Not her niece, but her niece. She is not my niece, a distinction that she's annoyed by. But I wanted to introduce her to you. She is known to many of you. She has been an advocate for housing and for serving families, and I know that she will carry forward the charge for working with homeless families, and so I want to introduce her to you tonight in that light.
Well, good evening, Mayor Tedemer and Council. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I think it goes without saying that it's an incredible honor to follow such large footprints. 27 years, Margie's made a tremendous impact on so many lives and so many residents in Lake Forest. So while honoring the legacy of Margie, but also moving forward into the vision of the future, I'm excited to lead the charge. I'm excited to continue to work with all of you at the City of Lake Forest. Lots of great things happening with the city. And with the work that we're doing to end family homelessness. I know that we will absolutely get there and get to a functional zero. No child should have to sleep in a place not meant for human habitation. And then while we're working on that, we're going to also make sure that no family falls over the edge into homelessness, and we really work on preventing that family homelessness here in Lake Forest. So I'm very excited to continue the charge and looking forward to working with you all in this new role and continuing to strengthen the relationship with Lake Forest. So thank you.
Thank you very much for being here. Please.
Margie, you're retiring after all these years?
You know, it had to happen.
I know.
I think it has been a joy for me, and I'm looking forward to making an impact in a different way.
Your office was so cozy and so welcoming, and you had all those great little things for kids to cuddle up with, and it's just like an extension of your personality. So,
Leaving them for men.
Well, congratulations on your retirement. I wish you much success. You're leaving it in good hands. Madeline is awesome.
And we need to say thank you so much. You know, we live in Orange County, and people forget that there are people struggling out there. And so what you guys have done for the family here in Lake Forest and throughout the county is a remarkable testimony of people's will to make a difference. And so you have made a huge difference, and you're leaving it in great hands. And so congratulations to you, and God bless you, and thank you for your service to the people of Orange County and the families here. So we really appreciate you so much, and we will be happy to be working with such a wonderful heir to a great organization, Families Forward. Thank you.
Thank you both. Thank you.
Bob Holtzclaw, followed by Andrew O'Connor.
Hello, Bob Holtzclaw from our Board for Vector Control for Lake Forest. I'll start with the local problems we have and expand a little bit further. We have the Aedes mosquito still in the Aliso Creek area between Mission Viejo and Lake Forest. It is expanding, but not as much as we figured on, but by 2022, probably be all over the city. And there's nothing really we can do. It is nobody's fault. It's just that, you know, they will expand. We have two different types. Is the Aegyptide, that's the yellow fever mosquito, and the Alopictus, that's the known as the tiger mosquito. And we have let's see, we call for service. You know, and we have calls for service. We have 12 for mosquitoes and 0 for rats. I don't know if the residents know it, but Vector Control is a free service. You paid for it out of your property tax, and these people are so knowledgeable. When you call them out, they'll really surprise you. So I know Foothill and Portola has, you know, probably more rats up there in that Foothill area coming down. So it might be great to take advantage of it. Statewide, we've had 10 cases of West Nile and 1 in the city of Orange, and 2 in Los Angeles. Only 1 death in the state. 6 cases of typhus, and we've had 4 in Anaheim, 1 in Garden Grove, and 1 in Santa Ana. 5 cases of dengue, none in Lake Forest. The Norway rat in Los Angeles is pretty well taken over the area, and it's just about an epidemic situation in the homeless area. And something really needs to be done with this, because we might be in really a big problems. As a matter of fact, even quietly, they're even talking about bubonic plague, which comes to lots of times we had the squirrels problem with that. And just remember for everybody that wiped out 1/3 of Europe. So that's a lot of voters, people. So anyhow, I just wanted to bring that to your attention. And I left some brochures there on ticks, fleas, rats, and some of our mosquito repellent on the desk over there. So the residents behind me are welcome to take a copy and, you know, rub some mosquito repellent on you so you don't get bit. Okay, take care.
Thank you very much.
Andrew O'Connor, followed by Kenton Botcher.
Yes. Did Councilman Robson explain why he's absent?
I'm sorry?
Did he give a reason why he's absent? My time starts now. Good evening. My name is Andrew O'Connor from Foothill Ranch since 1990. I'm here tonight to talk about the last council meeting, July 16th, when Council Robinson went into a tirade against me. One of my exhibits is Exhibit 1 tonight, Form 497, for Mayor Pro Tem Contribution Report. Listed on this report is the amount of $5,000 from a Los Angeles Harbor Grain Terminal, Long Beach, California. My question is, why would the mayor pro tem accept a contribution from a Long Beach company located in Los Angeles County? Councilman Robinson, I wonder, did your father-in-law sign this check? And then the other question is, why not write a check from your personal account? Why have the corporation do it? On the same day, at the 56-minute mark, Robinson says continual attack was voiced by him towards me. I've been attending and presenting to this council way before you were ever elected. You've had 35 days to research all my presentations, and tonight you're absent. Please cite a continual attack in any of my presentations. Exhibit 2 are your campaign flyers and the themes that you talked about. Stop music jail expansion, you voted on it. Reduce pension benefits, you never did this. You voted generous bonuses to the staff. Appoint a traffic commission, you voted against it twice. You only voted for it when Basil, Gardner, and Cagley had the votes for it to pass, more than 5 years after you made the promise on the campaign trail. Business experience, you married the boss's daughter. Multiple violations against your company for overloading 758 cargo containers, some by as much as 7 tons, to gain a competitive advantage while endangering motorists. Lake Forest business owner, your business is in Long Beach. Open more schools, I love this one. You voted against opening the school slate for Baker Ranch by refusing to tie the school to the developer agreement. Denying funds for crossing guards for a Saddleback School District in the 2021 academic year. You said districts have their own police force. Really? Can you name one Orange County school district that has a police force? Your flyers are continual lies of broken promises, yet you question my remarks? Why? Because you're speaking with no facts. There's no lies that I'm perpetuating, as you claim, but there are many lies that you have perpetuated over the course of your term. Can you name one time when you corrected Scott Voights on one of his lies? One time when you held Andrew Hamilton publicly accountable for the things he wrote using the James Ross alias? One time when you corrected the record when your political supporters called your very own constituents thugs and pedophiles? One time when you corrected the record about Councilwoman Montezani's fictional participation on a fictional oversight committee to fix the traffic problems? You cannot. You are 0 for 4, Councilman. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next.
Kenton Betcher, followed by Pam Estes.
Can we
Just want
call
to
a quick
answer
pause?
2 of the questions. So actually, I was appointed on the Tax Oversight Committee of OCTA, so that's public record. You can research that. And then regarding campaign finance laws, individuals are able to accept donations from businesses and individuals. As I've mentioned before in your tirades, if you have an issue with campaign finance law, I suggest you talk to the appropriate parties, and that's your federal representative. And if you don't know who she is, it's Katie Porter, so I recommend you schedule a meeting with her to talk to her about campaign finance reform. Thank you.
And, Speaker. Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Point of clarification, Santa Ana Unified School District has their own police department for the school district. Thank you.
Next speaker.
Mayor and council people, thank you. My name is Kenton Betcher. You probably know me from Whispering Hills, and I'm just here to thank you. I can't thank you enough. And the first responders for the tragedy that happened at Whispering Hills about 3 o'clock. We had a home that was fully engulfed. Within a half hour, while they're still in the middle of it, Aaliyah called to be sure everything was taken care of, and we have a wonderful property manager who was already contacting insurance and getting restoration when we get the okay from the fire department. The first responders were absolutely amazing. The police were there. The first ones there, I think there was 13 companies of fire trucks. The city coordinated the street closures. It worked like clockwork. And a house fire especially it's a life changer for the people who lose everything. There was one individual, and we don't know the details, that was injured, was taken by ambulance to the hospital, and so our thoughts and prayers with them. But when the tragedy does occur, we have comfort that we know that it all came together in a really incredible way. And so a lot of times we forget to say thank you. And so for all of your parts in it. Thank you from our community and from me individually. So,
Appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Pam Estes, followed by Phyllis Phillips.
I'm Pam Estes, and I'm the CEO of the Boys and Girls Club of Laguna Beach, which serves primarily Laguna, Aliso Viejo, and Lake Forest. And so I'm here first to give you a quick update on our summer program that we provided. We enrolled 107 children into our El Toro Park transportation program this summer, and where we would pick them up in the morning at El Toro Park, bring them to our Canyon branch in Laguna Canyon, and then bring them back to the park at the end of the day for their parents to pick them up. And we gave them really great enrichment experiences in music, art, sports, recreation, beach trips, field trips, and also provided over 30 caring professional adults in their lives. I'm here about a proposed after-school enrichment program that we'd like to provide at El Toro Park, and that would be at no cost to the city. Since 2013, we've served over 675 young people through this program in Lake Forest. Over the years, we've been fortunate enough to be able to see them grow and blossom, and we already have 25 Gates students that are just waiting for the word to enroll in this program, and that's without any advertising at all. I actually just had a mom call me, a Gates mom call me right before I left the club today, asking about the program. So we are asking to serve the most at-risk and in-need young people in all of Lake Forest, and are uniquely qualified to provide this service. We're committed to not abandoning the families who need us most, and will do whatever it takes to enrich their lives and their futures. So we're hoping that we'll get consideration of this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Phyllis Phillips, followed by a resident on Pheasant that did not have a name on the speaker card.
Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Phyllis Phillips, and I'm the past president of the Board of Directors of the Boys and Girls Club of Laguna Beach. And I wanted you to know that the Board of Directors supports Pamela and the staff of the Boys and Girls Club in this this proposal that we are really hoping that you will accept. We love your children. You know, we have worked with your children for 7 years, and when we look at our community, we look at our community as part of yours and yours as part of ours. Children are children are children, no matter where they're from. We think that when children walk through our front door, everything is equal. It's the great equalizer. And we believe that when children come on to El Toro Park, come into the hands of our young youth directors, they're all equal. We provide them water, after-school snacks, joy. They're being taken care of by educated staff. Our ratio is very, very low. It's 10-to-1. So I just wanted you to know that we support this 100%, and we really ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you.
City Manager, I have a question. If we wanted to agendize, we're looking at having I would call it a pop-up at the park. Do we do that at our comment portion, or do we do this now?
You could do it now. You'd need to use the council consensus process if you'd like to add this to the agenda. You'd need to also designate what date you would like to have it.
Well, I'll wait to the end, but I would like to get consensus to put this on our next meeting agenda.
Well, we have another speaker which may give it more information, so why don't we hear from Mr. Anderson?
Mysterious resident on Pheasant Street. My name's Terry Anderson. I was
distracted when I was filling out my speaker card. First off, I want to thank everyone on staff and on the council for their time that they have graciously given me to speak with them on this matter. As you all know, we've been working on the Boys and Girls Club situation for a very long time, and we all have grand dreams of what we want Boys and Girls Club to become, and I don't think those dreams are going to go away at all. But tonight and today, we are really just trying to put a flag in the ground in this community directly, instead of shipping our kids off to Laguna Beach, to allow them to have an after-school program, as Pam and Phyllis have both illuminated, where we have the greatest need, there in El Toro Park. Now, while our city code is a little bit lacking in where we're trying to go with this, because we're trying to put a facility in a public place, and we need to work on that. That's a longer-term project to change our code. And while I think that we could, this Boys and Girls Club program would be a great service provider to the city, I don't know if you're ready to write checks for those services just yet. So I think the easiest way to do this, to see what Boys and Girls Club can provide, and for Boys and Girls Club to prove to the city that the need is truly there, would be to just allow a simple permitting process, just an expansion of the current permitting process that we have for day use. Boys and Girls Club has plenty of liability and is more than happy to completely defend and indemnify the city against any possible issues that might arise. But if you could, as Councilman Modazzati has suggested, agendize at your next scheduled meeting the opportunity to present to staff the ability for us to have a longer term permit. Perhaps it's just for the school year, but for a longer reasonable time frame so that the program can be launched and 50 kids a day can be serviced where the greatest need is. That is really what we're trying to accomplish. From there, changes to the community and clubhouses and grand growth can come, but this is where we need to start, and we need your help just to that. Just something as simple as a permitting. No different than we've done with all of our sports organizations, with AYSO, whose board I'm back on again, football, baseball, and all other similar organizations that we have in the community. So I believe your next meeting, I'll just wrap this up real quickly. I believe your next meeting, unfortunately, is not until the 17th. Is that correct? So we'd really like to make this thing happen for this school year. If you could agendize it and agree on it, we would really hope that you could direct staff so that they could move forward immediately. Boys and Girls Club could start the following Monday, the 23rd. It's 30 days after school starts, but the program can be up and running by then. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Our last speaker is Shannon Quinn.
Hi, my name's Shannon Quinn. I live in Bella Palermo. I'm here just to have voice my opinion in regards to the park, the Portola Park, and I understand this is an agenda item for later to have up for discussion as well as vote. And I'm just here to ask of you to please vote no on the stadium lighting as well as the soccer fields. We have enough soccer fields. And so I wanted to come here tonight to just voice my opinion. So thank you.
And just so you know, there'll be an opportunity to speak during the item again. So if you choose to stay, but if not, we have your comments.
Thank you.
Thank you very
I'm
much.
not the best public speaker.
You're doing great. You did great.
Perfectly. Thank you for being here. Is there any more blue speaker cards? Okay, I understand Facebook Live is back up and running.
We are limping along, sir.
All right. What have you got for us?
No public comments until the park issue.
Till the park issue. Very good. All right, so that will close the public comment portion. And that brings us to consent calendar for both meetings. Thank you. Oh, let me pause here, since I think there was some discussion about wanting to address. Did you want to pause and consider the item that you brought forward now? Or do you want to wait till the end of the meeting?
I'll move consent calendar. I'll move consent calendar 6 through
no.
12.
I'm sorry. Hold one sec. There was a conversation about responding to the last few speakers regarding Boys and Girls Club.
That comes at the end only, usually.
I understand, but there was asked for consideration about whether it could be done now, so unless there's some
I'm
reason-
okay with that.
Do you mind if it's done now, or do you want to hold it to the end?
there's nothing that would prohibit you from doing that legally now. It's typically done at the end, but it can be done now as well. It's council's.
Okay, I'm just responding to my two colleagues who seem to be interested in
Yeah.
striding out. So you have the floor, whomever.
Okay, well, I've never done this before, so I will start out and just say that I think having maybe a pilot program for the Boys and Girls Club would be. No?
Mayor Pro Tem Matazzi, we're not actually going to debate the item tonight.
Oh.
We're just scheduling a future discussion.
Okay.
So we can have a full discussion about it when it's agendized.
Okay, and can we call for a special meeting on this because of the timing of the,
Yes, you have several options.
That's not very popular, but.
So what you could do, the next council meeting is September 17th. However, there is a September 3rd date that is available should the council wish to talk about it on September 3rd. The council could also vote to have a special meeting, I suppose, if you wanted to pick another date.
Okay, do we want to have a special meeting?
When we decide, if hypothetically we decided on a special meeting, we don't have to be present. We can call in via conference call as well, as long as it's publicly noticed, correct?
Correct, as long as it's noticed on the agenda face sheet.
And that can occur in August, considering that school year is already underway. It is hypothetically possible if the Boys and Girls Club is prepared with their proposal for approval, correct?
There are certain things that we would explore in basically the municipal code and how to facilitate this request. Most of it is fairly quick. The part that would take longer would be exploring some kind of a fee structure if council wants to consider that.
But again, that's something we would discuss during the meeting. So we're not talking about the proposal at this point. This is just
So I think
scheduling a
question is,
discussion.
do we want to have
You
a
can
meeting?
choose any day you'd like, as long as the three of you agree to be there.
More organically, it would be the 3rd because that's part of the regular cycle. If we want to do that, and that would give staff some time to compile whatever was needing to be compiled. We have quite a bit of information. So that's one logical place, but
That works for me.
so that.
So what we're actually doing, we're moving to a council discussion on Boys and Girls Club pop-up in Lake Forest on September 3rd. And I'll move that item for agendize.
Okay, so we're looking for consensus at this point to say, have the meeting on the 3rd for that item.
Yes, for solely that item.
Yeah, I second.
Okay. So you have what you need then to proceed?
All right.
Okay. No, it's just a consensus.
It's just consensus.
We're good.
So
I mean, unless you-
on that, I'll move consent calendars, item 6 through 12.
Okay, I appreciate the motion. I think there's some disclosures we need to make.
I'll start with the warrant registry of the County of Orange. I am an employee of the County of Orange, and I do not work for the department that generated the warrants. Because the County of Orange is a public agency, and because I do not work in the department in question, I have determined that there's a non-interest in this warrant, and I will vote on the item. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mayor Pro Tem.
All right, there is a warrant on the register to the gas company. I'm an employee of the gas company. I've determined that I have a remote interest in this warrant and will abstain from voting on that warrant.
All right, and I also, there are warrants on the register to Irvine Ranch Water District. I'm an employee of Irvine Ranch Water District, but not work for the departments that generated these warrants. Because the Irvine Ranch Water District is a public agency and because I do not work for the departments in question, I have determined that I have a non-interest in this warrant and will vote on the matter. And I'm seeing you lean forward.
I don't have anything to declare on the warrant register. I just didn't want to be left out.
Well, we appreciate it.
So move item 6 through 12.
And because we have a housing authority open simultaneously, there's a consent calendar, items 1 and 2, which.
I'll move consent calendar warrant on the warrant registry, on the consent calendar for the housing authority.
Okay, you got what you need? Okay, go ahead and vote.
A second on that, please.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion passes 4-0 with Councilmember Robinson absent.
All right, thank you very much. On to discussion items. Brings us to item 13, appoint delegate for League of California Cities Annual Conference. Turn it over to staff.
Mayor, members of the City Council, the League of California Cities will be holding their annual conference in September. They do require a delegate who will be a voting delegate representing the city of Lake Forest. The mayor, as the city's representative, will be the main delegate, but an alternate delegate is being requested at this point. We have 2 other council members that will be attending the conference, so any of those that will be attending are able to be the alternate delegate.
Okay. I understand 2 colleagues to my left are going, so I guess the question is.
So I'll nominate Nikki for alternate.
I'll second.
No, I wanted to nominate you.
Too late.
I call that vote, please. Thank you. All in favor? Cast your vote.
So
it's been moved and seconded.
Yeah, I got the short straw. Okay, fine.
You okay?
I'm okay with that.
All right.
All right.
Got to move quick sometimes.
Motion passes 4-0 with Councilmember Robinson absent.
Great.
Congratulations.
All right. Next is item 14, Second Amendment to City Manager Employment Agreement. Turn it over to the appropriate staff member.
Yes, the council discussed in closed session some weeks back the city manager's performance for the year. This is required by the Brown Act. This is an amendment to the city manager's employment agreement with details noted in the staff report. Action is pursuant to the council's direction.
Okay. Colleagues?
I will go with staff recommendation, or our own recommendation, I should say.
I'll second that, and I want to say to Miss Rose, you have done a fantastic job in these last couple of years. You've put up with a lot of stuff, and you've always been Switzerland. So thank you for all that you've done. Thank you for keeping everyone here very happy. I know that your employees are very happy here. So thank you. You deserve it.
All right, very good. And we have a motion and a second. I will second those comments, so I appreciate that. All right, we have a motion and a second for approval. Please vote.
Motion passes unanimously 4-0 with Councilmember Robinson absent.
Thank you. Next is item 15, construction contract award for Portola Park project.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. I'm excited to introduce this new item, which will be the newest public park for the city, the 31st Park. It's a 6-acre park. It includes our first pickleball courts, or our first public pickleball courts, a sand volleyball court, restrooms, a large dog park for the community, and a large grass field. So tonight, staff's recommending that council accept the property from the developer, that you approve the construction contract, you provide direction on any bid alternatives, and approve the associated budget to build the park. I'd like to introduce Taylor Abernathy, the city's engineer and project manager on this project, and he'll walk us through the what the design is of the park. It's been a while since we did that. The developer finally got finished and got the park in good enough shape to give to us, or for the city to accept. And he'll walk us through the park. We also have representatives from RJM, the design firm, here, in case you might have any design questions for the park. So with that, Taylor can walk us through the bid alternatives and the design.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. I'm here to discuss Portola Park. The last time that this was brought to this council was when you guys were approving the design concept phase. Here there is some parking, there's a volleyball court, restroom, some pickleball courts, a second tier, lower tier dog park, a large grass area that could accommodate 10-use soccer, a tot lot, and some associated structures. The final site plan here, a few things switched, most notably the volleyball court and the pickleball courts switched locations. The Glen Ranch Road originally was an entrance and an exit. But due to sightline distances leaving, it had been moved to only an entrance in. It's no longer an exit. It makes everything go out to the controlled intersection here at Saddleback Ranch. It's a safer movement for everyone. Then there is a large grass area that could accommodate potential soccer with the tot lot, and then the lower tier dog park. The base bid in itself has lighting options, the lighting around the parking lot, and then there's some pathway lighting that goes around the top tier of the light of the park. At Councilmember Basil's request, that some additional information was requested, so we've added some slides here talking about the lighting specifications. The pole heights for the parking lot lights are 25 feet. The lumen outputs about 9,500 lumens. It's a 132 watt fixture that's being used. So if you guys are into the electrical stuff, that should tell you what you're looking at. Pedestrian pathways, the pole heights are your standard 14 feet parkway lighting with a lumen output of around 6,500. The thing that's here to be discussed is the alternatives. We have 3 lighting alternatives. Alternative 1 is the dog park and walkway lighting, which is highlighted down here as a pathway down to the lower tier, and then some associated lighting with the dog park itself. Alternative 2 is to potentially light the pickleball and volleyball courts. And then alternative 3 is must-go lighting, so it would be a sports field lighting of the large grass area, and then tot lot lighting specifically for the tot lot. To go over those specifics, it gets a little bit more crowded here on this page, but the dog park and lower tier lighting is 14 feet in height, the same 6,500 lumen output. Pickleball and volleyball lighting is a 20-foot pole height. The output is 18,000 lumens. That's a single fixture. It would double if you have the dual fixtures in some of the middle portions of the courts. And then there's 2 parts to the alternative 3. There's must-go lighting. Those are your standard sports lighting. They're 50 feet. The lumen output's 121,000. It's a 4-fixture bay. There's 4 bays around the field. And then the tot lot lighting is back to your more pickleball, volleyball lighting standard. It's 20-foot height with, again, the 18,000 lumen output. The 4th alternative is an aesthetic alternative that was considered. There was originally in the design a top cast concrete finish. We added it as an alternative for that. That goes around all of the pedestrian pathways. If we wanted to consider that alternative. And this is a visual. The broom finish is what is in the bid as we speak. For the base bid, it's your standard sidewalk gray broom finish. The top cast finish, which would be considered, is a little bit more aesthetic. Has the exposed aggregate type finish. And so that's the other option before you. Now into the costs. This is base bid. The base bid was determined, and the low bidder was determined on base bid alone. So these are the alternative costs that they identified during bidding. Alternative 1, the dog park and lower tier walkway lighting, is to be considered at $77,500. Alternative 2, pickleball and volleyball court lighting, is $168,400. Alternative 3, the must-go lighting, which does include the tot lot lighting as well, is $246,000. And then the final out of alternate was top cast concrete finish at $43,000. So with that being said, that's our presentation. Staff, community service, public works, and our consultant are here to answer any questions.
So my question would be, with the lighting options, is there an automatic shut off to where lights can be shut off like at 9 o'clock throughout the park? So I know that our park standard shut off time is 10 p.m. Is that correct?
So there's 2 different types of lights that we have. Standard sports field lighting.
And then you got the pathway walks.
Yeah, the pathway lights that we typically leave on all night for security. Parking lot and the pathway lights.
Okay, but the fact is, the rest of
That's
the
in the base
park would
bid.
be, that's in the base bid,
Correct.
so that would be on.
The other lights you can turn off whenever.
Okay.
They're totally controllable.
So those are controllable?
Correct.
Yes. And just to emphasize that the base bid does have the underground infrastructure, the conduits and that stuff, so that you can come back at a later date if you so choose.
I have a couple questions. So the pickleball and volleyball lighting, if that was an alternative that we decided to go with, though that light can be turned off at a certain time.
Yes.
Okay. And then the second question regarding alternative for the top cast finish, does that have higher maintenance costs in the long run to upkeep?
Yeah, a little bit. Yes, so your exposed aggregate finish does have a little bit more of maintenance from just that will wear off over time.
I'm inclined to want to get public input, but
I agree.
I will.
I'd like to hear from the public.
Okay. So public speakers are here tonight, and of course, Facebook Live, hang in there, we'll get to you.
We have two speakers, Barbara Taylor, followed by David Antensi.
Good evening. My name is Barbara Taylor. I live in Portola Hills. I'm also the president of Bella Palermo Homeowners Association. We are directly adjacent to the new park, and we'd like to ask you to stick with the original plan. There was a lot of work, a lot of staff work, a lot of community involvement that went into putting together the original plan. There are a lot of people who do not want to see stadium lighting there because of the impact that it would be affecting. Again, we look over, we're much above the park, so it would be directly affecting all of the people who are close to that area. And so we're asking you not to do the high stadium lighting, to do the park as it was originally designed, and we believe it was a good design and a lot of involvement. So that's all I have to say.
Can I just to clarify, so it's just what they call the Musco lighting for the soccer field. The tall
really
lights
high,
is what
the
that's
very high bright lights. Yes.
right, because here I'm
You
not
need,
sure why.
you obviously need some lighting, you know, for parking lots and,
Sure.
and things like
What I don't quite understand, but I'll ask staff in a minute, why the soccer lighting got tied together with the tot lot lighting. Could they be separated? But I just want to clarify, your concern is the higher
the
soccer
higher,
field
brighter
lights,
lighting,
not the other lights that are
normal lights are fine.
normal lights. Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Yes.
Mr. David Antenisi.
Thank you, Barbara. I have the same concern. The stadium lights, I've lived next to them once before when I lived in Mission Viejo. I lived next to Alicia Park that had those big stadium lights. A lot of times, I mean, there were good intentions by the city to shut them off after the games were done. A lot of times that just didn't happen, and the lights were on all night. It was very disturbing in the neighborhood, and I would hate to see Portola Hills exposed to that that type of a situation. In addition to the lighting pollution, there's the issue of the cost, the $264,000 that was talked about earlier, the noise at night that soccer fields would bring, traffic, parking, and lighting would all excuse me, would all negatively impact homeowners in the area. So as voting tax-paying citizens of Lake Forest and residents of Portola Hills, we urge you to stick with the original plan and to vote against any proposal for stadium lighting.
And if I could, just to
just
to clarify, same issue here. It's
Same
really the
exact issue.
taller soccer lights which are
Yeah.
your concern, because there's other alternatives that involve lighting.
Yes.
But it's not the soccer lighting. I'm just trying to clarify, your concern is about
You are
the taller-
correct.
Thank you. Just want
Yes.
to clarify, make sure I
On,
understood.
on the other lighting, though, I do have a comment. I was in the engineering construction business before I retired, so I know a little bit about lighting. And I'm hoping that the lighting that does get installed at the new park is the downward, downward
they are,
type
yeah.
of lighting fixtures.
When all the new lighting goes up, it's the utmost of, it's called lighting pollution. So
Yes.
the fact is they narrow that. And the fact is new lighting, even the stadium lighting, isn't what old stadium lighting was.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else from the folks here would like to address the city council on this item? Okay. Be sure to fill out a blue speaker card. You can do it afterward.
Andrew O'Connor from Foothill Ranch. We had this same situation develop in Borrego Park, and we stopped it. And the author of it was Scott Voights in AYSO Region 85. That's all that's driving it, and he's over there grinning. Okay? So Portola Hills, you're good neighbors. I like
Point of
you.
clarification, I wasn't on the council at that time when that was.
Scott,
Borrego.
let's let him finish, and then if you need
Okay.
to respond, you can.
So this is all driven by AYSO. They've got their man, Scott Voigt's here. He's, and people come and say, well, what are you doing? You changed it. This wasn't the original thing. They changed it because Scott Voigt's did it. So it'd be a shame if it happens. I wouldn't be surprised. But Councilman Basil, it's your community. You're going to take the flak on this. And I want the public to know that Scott Voigt is driving it for the soccer. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So the point of clarification, Mr. Mayor, I was on the council when the Borrego lighting debate was going on. It was far before my time. I got elected in 2010. I think that was a 2006, 2008 debate whether Borrego lighting would go up. But the fact, and I think that, part of what makes the community of Portola Hills and even Foothill Ranch a beautiful place is just the atmosphere of the mountain setting behind you. And so I think that 50-foot lighting would be extremely detrimental to the style of lighting that you guys are used to up there in being in the wilderness almost. And so my question to staff is, why do you guys have a bid in for 50-foot lights?
We're not quite there yet because we still have Facebook Live to get comments on.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah,
I'll bring it back up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Your
Please.
Honor. April Howard, comment to council. Please stick with the original plan for Portola Center Park. Another soccer field is redundant when we have a beautiful state-of-the-art sports park just a short distance away. In addition, please vote no on stadium lights. It's an excessive waste of tax dollars and will cause light pollution for surrounding homes, not to mention the uptick in traffic. Missy Roberts, comment to council. When park items are addressed, please stick with the original plan for Portola Center Park. Please vote no on stadium lights. It's an excessive waste of tax dollars and will cause light pollution for the surrounding homes. Jared Schidler, please keep the original plans for Portola Center Park. We do not need stadium lights for the park because it should close at sundown like most of the other parks in the area. Sonia Bain Wheeler, stick to the original plan. No soccer field with stadium lights. Our community has been impacted enough. Marta Murillo, no stadium soccer lights in Portola Hills. Vince Vasquez, comment to council. Please listen to the residents and not the developers. I'm sure the city can use over $700,000 for something other than lights in Portola Hills where they are not wanted or needed. Leanne Christie Broomer, when park items are addressed, please stick with the original plan for Portola Center Park. Please vote no on stadium lights, an excessive waste of tax dollars and will cause light pollutions. Robert Heaton, the city set a great precedent with the Lake Forest Sports Park by picking a location relatively isolated from residential areas to satisfy the recreation needs of our city in a manner least disruptive to residents. The change to the plans for Portola Center Park that would include a soccer field and stadium lights is not in the spirit of what is best for residents, hence the reason you see so few speaking up in support of the change and so many speaking against. Please stick to the original plans for the park and honor the needs of residents and fiscal responsibility we look to from our leaders by voting to stick to the original plans and specifically not include a soccer field and stadium lights. Cindy Zerwaka, please stick to the original plan for Portola Center Park. Please vote no on stadium lights. It's a waste of tax dollars and will cause light pollution for the surrounding homes. That's all.
All right, thank you. All the Facebook comments, we appreciate that. All right, Mr. Voigt, I think you had a question.
Back to 50-foot lighting. With the view that you have from Portola Hills and looking out at 50-foot lights, I would be awestruck that if the city would have done that. So my question to staff is, what in the heck were you guys thinking with 50-foot lights poles for one soccer field? I mean, that's kind of like overkill.
Thank you for the question, Councilmember Voigt. When we brought the conceptual design to the City Council in October of 2015,
it didn't have 50-foot lights in it.
It did not have 50-foot lights in it, but the City Council directed staff to get an estimate and include this as a bid alternative for the City Council's consideration.
Okay, so
that's why we got the estimate.
We have 50-foot lighting at the sports park, and we have them all around the sports park. You can go by and see the 50-foot high mega lights. But the fact is, we're talking about a one field And that's not even a full-size field that's there. The size of the field that is there is for small players. So I don't know why we even put in a bid for 50-foot lights. I mean, that's overkill. So my motion would be that, we stick to the original lighting profile for the park there.
Thank you for the motion. So I need some clarification because there's a number of alternative items that include lights. So if we stay with the original plan, then I'm reading, you're saying no to the other lights.
I think the residents have spoken that they don't want any of the lights,
Nope.
so my motion
Let
would be.
me clarify,
Yeah.
because what the residents I heard say was they didn't want the soccer stadium lighting.
The
but they're-
original, and so my motion would be that we keep the
Well, wait a
original
minute though,
plan.
but there's alternative items called pickleball and volleyball lighting, dog park and walkway lighting. There's a tot lot lighting. So I think there's still some other items as I read this that are not part of the soccer lights that may be something that we should discuss. That's all I'm saying.
I want to make a point. I mean, this is my community, so I know this area exceedingly well. The topography of that particular park is so unique in that it overlooks Whiting Ranch, and there's a lot of open space, and then you have the hills that come up, and now you have $1.5 million homes that are sitting up above and all the way up. So no matter what additional lighting we put in, it's going to negatively impact the residents that live directly surrounding that park. So I am concerned, although it would be great to have additional lighting in certain areas, I have a great deal of concern for those residents that it's going to impact them, because I recall I live around the other side of the hill overlooking El Toro Road where the cows are. But I remember one night looking out in the sky thinking, gosh, what is that strange light in the sky? It was the night that they turned the lights on at the sports park 5 miles away. I mean, it was that impactful that I noticed it around the corner away from the sports park. And if I could have that kind of reaction from my home and it was a minimal light pollution, imagine what these homeowners are going to be feeling, especially the ones that just spent $1.5 million for this beautiful house. They're living in it for 3 months, and all of a sudden these crazy lights are showing up. We may end up with some negative feedback from the residents just with the very low standard, lighting on the walkways and the parking lot. I don't want to impact these residents any more than we already have. So I want to listen to what the residents are saying, and they're saying loud and clear they don't want to make any changes to the plans. These were workshops where these residents were involved, and this is what they wanted. I say let's let them have what they want.
So just to cut to the chase from what I heard, which was I heard people saying they didn't want the soccer lighting. The rest of it we can debate, and we should. But what I heard people say is they didn't want the big soccer lighting, and I was very clear. I asked a couple of the speakers about that specifically. So I'm going to make a motion that we not pursue the soccer lighting so we can dispense with that issue, and then we can move on to talking about other lighting, but that way we can just get that off the table. So
I'll
that's my
second
motion,
that.
that we not pursue the high soccer lighting field. Or, I'm sorry, the high lights, the 50-footers or whatever they are. That's my motion, that we just take that off the table so we can move on to talking about the other items.
You got my second.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Okay. Anything wrong with that? Okay, so let's go ahead and vote on that.
Motion passes 3-1 with Councilmember Voigt's dissenting and Councilmember Robinson absent.
All right, thank you. So we now don't need to concern ourselves with the tall soccer lights. We still have the base project and then the alternative items. So what's the pleasure? We can take on the alternatives one at a time or put them all together if somebody wants to do that, or?
Can staff remind us what the base plan was, please?
Walkway lights, pathway.
The base bid includes the park with no additional lighting. So included in the lighting is a parking lot and some security perimeter lighting around the sidewalks. So your alternatives are, do you want activity at the dog park at night? Do you want activity at night at the pickleball courts and or the volleyball courts? And then your last one is the concrete finish.
Okay.
So since we're,
So we
thank
can-
you
So,
for
so
answering.
I'll make a motion right now that we stay with the standard broom finish to wipe that off because the fact the added cost of $45,000 plus the annual cost of having it steam cleaned and re-etched. That's what happens. They have to periodically acid wash it to bring down the concrete. So I'll make a motion that we stay with the original broom finish.
I'll second.
Okay, so we're eliminating alternative 4 as I read it for the item. Okay, go ahead and vote on that. I know it feels like we're doing this backwards. Trust us, it's sometimes works out better this way. Okay, then there's still 3 alternative items. One is the pickleball and volleyball lighting. The other is the dog park and walkway lighting. And the other is the tot lot lighting. So I'm bifurcating alternative 3 because it had the soccer and tot lot. And my motion was only to remove the soccer lighting, so the tot lot still remains for that alternative 3 item. Colleagues?
Regarding pickleball and volleyball lighting, so if that is an option that we go with, what would be we would set the hours that activity could occur at that time for those activities, right?
The short answer is yes, but there's a little more explanation. Currently, we have tennis courts at El Toro Park and Mountain View Park. And what we have the traditional park sign that indicates that park hours are dawn to dusk. And then it says, except for lighted areas, which are open until 10 o'clock. We have a similar sign at the sports park and Heroes Park where we also light fields. The difference, I think, is that at the sports park and, Heroes Park, there aren't a lot of homes right around there. Sports park is also a little different given the nature of the facility. Generally, what we would do if you're going to light those, the way the public reads that is that they're going to play pickleball and volleyball until the lights go out. So if the intent is not to keep them open until 10 o'clock p.m. or 9 o'clock p.m., you might consider saving money and not installing the lights. You might also consider just the proximity of the pickleball courts to the residential homes, because pickleball can be a loud sport. It's a plastic ball that bangs off of a wooden paddle.
I agree. I think that we should just skip all other lighting alternatives. Concourse Park, which is right up the street, has just the standard lighting on the sidewalk, and people still walk through it, a little bit at night, but it's not intended to be open, late at night. That's kind of the purpose. These are supposed to be passive community parks. And if we start lighting them with any additional lighting, it's going to start drawing more people in, and they're going to be using the facilities more, which will impact the quiet enjoyment of the residents in the area. So I'm voting no on alternative 1, alternative 2, alternative 3. I don't want any additional lights beyond what we've already agreed to in the original plans.
And just to follow up on my question about the areas that we had where we have public tennis courts, lighting, have we had any issues with residents living around those facilities?
There's one tennis court that it's adjacent to a home, and we get occasional complaints from those residents.
I guess there's another alternative. Not everything has to stay open until 10. You have
9
some days
p.m.
where the day it gets dark at 4:30 or 5 o'clock. You could still do something till 8, so not 10. So there are other alternatives between nothing and keeping it open till 10. So those are all available to us. The dog park and walkway lighting, I mean, I know some that think any lighting's bad, but I think for the enjoyment of the facility after hours, to me, would seem like might be some value in that, but what are you hearing, if anything?
It's interesting. At Barker Ranch Dog Park, that is right next to homes, so there are people that use that dog park at all hours of the night.
Mm-hmm.
I only know this because when we first installed it, we got a lot of complaints about the gate clanking shut. Once we replaced the gate with something that closes more gently and doesn't make noise, we didn't get any complaints. That park is still closes at dusk. It has the same park hours as most of our other parks. People just like to walk their dogs late at night.
There's something to be said about that because, as we approach the winter months, when it comes to 5 o'clock and people come home and they're dogs in the house and they want to go for a walk. I'm all about people getting out and walking more. I wish I could walk more, but I roll a lot. So, but the fact that I think that that dog park is on a lower tier than the actual park. So I think the lighting aspect of it being any kind of pollution to the residents of Portola Hills would be nil because it's a lower elevation than the other park. So, and I think that the lighting wouldn't be much more than what we have in the walkway, would it? I mean, do we have the Illuminatis? For
Yeah,
the
it's the same lumen output as the rest of the walkway lighting.
So, I think that, you know, I think that wouldn't be a detriment to the people of Portola Hills, and I think it would be a benefit to the residents that come home at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the winter months and want to take their dog out for a walk. To have that ability to do that at that lower tier. I make a motion that we allow the lighting for the dog park.
Okay. That's alternative 2, dog park and walkway lighting. Right? That's the one.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, it being at quite a bit lower tier, I mean, that's a 40-foot drop or 35-foot drop from the actual playground up above.
Can you give us the topography as it relates, because that backs up right onto Glen Ranch Road, and that, as far as I know, I drive it every day, 3, 4, 5 times a day, and even though it is a lower tier, the way that the road leans down, it's actually not a lower tier because there's no obstruction from the road, and therefore there'd be no obstruction for the houses that directly overlook that park. Can you clarify that for us?
Just to clarify, as you suggest, it does start to flush out with Glen Ranch Road at that lower pad, but as Scott suggests, it's an appreciably lower pad relative to the upper tier, if that helps.
What is the topography difference?
It's about 40 feet.
40 feet from the park area
down, yeah.
Down, but that's not taking into account the view from the street and therefore the houses that are directly above the hill looking down.
The houses above would see a glow. They may see the top of the lanterns lit up, so there's that consideration. But it's just, as you say, I think that's a pertinent point, that there is an appreciable departure, and in the design of the park, that was certainly a consideration with regards to where the dog park goes and how it best dovetails with the adjacent improvements.
And I understand, and that does make a lot of sense. However, I'm a representative of the people. And when I posted information about this park on Facebook, there dozens and dozens and dozens of people said that they did not want any additional lighting. And even if I wanted to light the whole thing up like Christmas, the people have told me what they want, and I cannot in good conscience vote any other way than what the people are telling me, and they're saying they do not want any additional lighting in any of the park beyond what is already originally approved. So I can't support any motion that's going to make any amendments to this park.
So while we're still discussing it, we're talking about the same Illuminatis that the pathway walk would be around it'd actually be around the dog park then, right?
That's right.
So it wouldn't be any higher than any of the other way. So my motion is that we accept the two. My motion would be that the dog park would be lit.
That's alternative to dog park and walkway. Mr. Wasserman, you were trying to get my attention. I just want to make sure we heard.
Thank you. You know, just one more bit of information to consider. This is certainly good arguments, pro and con. People going down into that dog park, it may not only be people walking their dogs, it may be kids. I mean, it could be other people. My experience in 4 cities and all the parks is that people stay in the parks late at night and sometimes do things they shouldn't do. And that part of the park is not accessible. It's not right next to the road where the sheriffs can just drive by and look in. So that would be the only other consideration that I would put out there.
So my consideration would be that you're saying that a dark park is a safer park than a lit park. I would say that a lit park is safer than a dark park, and so my motion would still stand that we light the dog park area, because the fact is that I think that's a safer venue for our residents.
Not to put words in your mouth, but I think that's what you're suggesting is people are going to go down there anyway. It's better if it's lit. That way it's more visible for the police to go and patrol, et cetera.
Actually, I was saying the opposite. So when,
Oh.
when you illuminate the park, when you light an activity area up when the rest of the park is dark, it sends the message that the park is open for business. So
Okay.
what I think will happen is you will get people that will use it as a dog park. You'll also get other people that will want to go find a place to hang out late at night and go down there because it is lighted.
Because it's lit, yeah.
Yeah.
It gives them a place to go. They'll think
Or-
that the park is open for all kinds of use.
So I'm one of 5 boys in my family, and we looked for dark parks to go to, not lit parks. And so my motions still say that the lit park would be a safer park for us. And the fact is, with people walking their dogs down there, the kids that want to go down there and do whatever they're going to do aren't going to do it in a lit park where people are walking their dogs. And so I think it would be beneficial to us is to have that there, that we get those reports.
So Chief, you're the professional here and you know how parks work. So you tell us as a police professional, in your opinion, what is a safer park?
In all honesty, whatever you design will
Oh,
adapt.
come on, that's not the
So
answer
I
we're
mean,
looking for.
in all honesty, it's in all honesty, lights. If you're going there to do nefarious activities, you're going to want to go to an area that's not well lit.
That's
because
right.
You don't want to draw attention to yourself. The kind of things we see when the parks are lit at night tend to be people walking their dogs, and it's just more of a nuisance to where we get calls for people disturbing the peace as opposed to criminal activity going on. It's been my experience, at least.
Well, and I'm struck because when I specifically asked a couple of the speakers tonight, they were only concerned about the soccer lights. They didn't express concerns about all the other lights. And I was very clear on asking to clarify. So I'm not hearing, obviously, what you're hearing based on the comments tonight. So I'm not part of your Facebook, so I don't traffic in that. But I specifically asked them, it was only the soccer lights, and they said yes. So that seems to be in conflict. Yes.
I agree that what I heard, and actually I have printed statements from emails that we received from folks in the community, and all of them, they're specifically addressing the soccer light issue, which I think we all agree we don't want. So I'm hearing different things, and that's a bit confusing. I also wanted to ask or bring up is these alternatives that were identified, didn't they derive out of a public meeting with the community members? So weren't these identified by folks in the community as being appropriate alternatives?
You know, it was actually, my recollection is it was more council driven. So when we started talking about the soccer field, the way that you light a soccer field is with tall lights. That's why we got the bid for the Musco lights. If you're talking about when council requests that we consider lighting one area of the park or that we present a bid for council's consideration, we instinctively look at a small park and say, well, we should get bids for other areas of the park to give council more choices.
I think, if I may, staff,
Please.
especially experienced with the sports park, originally designed the sports park for its sports fields and lit it accordingly. The designer did not include lighting of the tot lot because traditionally back during the design process they'd say parks are closed at dusk. It's not a typical thing you do at night. And what we found from that was, when we went in later and lit the tot lots, was once you open up a part of a park for lighting, it really opens up the whole park. And we had areas that weren't lit at the sports park, and yet people running around, and now that was a larger example of it, but I could see the same type of thing here for your consideration. When you light a larger area, but half of the park is dark and half is lit, it sends a mixed message of, is that part open, is that part closed, can you run around in the dark park? It just makes it, it's another thing to consider with enforcement, vandalism, things of that nature. But it was an interesting dynamic of once that park was open, the whole park was considered open. And we went back later and lit the tot lots.
And does that tot lot get used?
Absolutely.
So people enjoy
Lots of
Todd.
people, I mean, our sports park is special, right? I mean, it's a community gathering place. It is really a neat place to
And
be.
it's
it
also
gets used-
designed for that, and it's in a particular area that's sheltered from the other residents. They're not negatively impacted like this park would be when, all that we've seen for 25, 30 years is Whiting Ranch, and now there's new lights, and now the park is open, and now let's open it later, and now there's more people walking around, now there's dogs barking, and, now we want the volleyball court open because the dog park is open, and those are 206 watts per light. It's a Pandora's box. I just think we should close that door. I don't think we should approve any additional lighting.
Pickleball courts, the maintenance costs regarding that, do we have like an average cost on what that would look like in the future?
I don't. I know there's very, very low maintenance. They're LED lights, so they last in perpetuity. I think, as Scott mentions, the consideration with pickleball is the sound, that if the attraction is to keep it open during the shorter winter days, that perhaps there is some consideration to not letting that run to 9 or 10 o'clock at night relative to the adjacent residents.
Okay. Well, what I heard people, when I specifically asked, they were not opposed to all the other lights that's being proposed here. And I specifically asked them, I specifically asked about that on.
Maybe you should ask the residents to come back up. If they have some additional thoughts, they can write green cards right
I know
now.
you did, but you don't have a second, so we're just gonna plow our way through this.
There are lighting in the original proposal. There are parking lot lights, so that's what we're saying is the original lighting in the original proposal is fine. That's different from the alternatives. That's my perspective. Maybe that helped clarify that a little bit, because there are some lights in the original proposal that we're asking you to approve.
Understood. Thank you.
So, do we have our design specialist still here? So, if we lit the dog park, would that be any more lighting than what would have been if just the parking lot's lit? I mean, we're talking about LED lighting, right? So it's same Illuminati, so you wouldn't see from the rest of Portola Hills, you wouldn't see an abundance more of light if the dog area was.
Well, that area would be washed with light, Councilman. So you have the parking lot lighting, the upper tier lighting, and that would have a safe level of lighting.
And then you would have the lower
You'd have the lower tier that would be relatively dark. So if the dog lights go in, you have a more equidistant dissemination of foot candles. That's provided for some level of nighttime activity. An important consideration that Taylor shared is that base bid does have open conduit and pull boxes provided to allow any of these options to be considered and pursued at a later date, just so we know that.
Okay. Thank you.
David, did you have something Mayor, I'm sorry, if you don't mind.
I did. I'd like to, just to clarify, Mark, you did ask the question about, was my concern the soccer field lighting? And yes, that is my primary concern, is the soccer field lighting. But I've written 2 emails to yourself and the other city council members about this, one yesterday, one a few weeks ago, and I was very clear at the time to stick to the original plan and add no additional lighting. I think that makes a lot of sense. I agree with Leah's arguments on this, and I just like to clarify my earlier comments.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Mayor, we have 2 additional speaker cards on that item.
All right, let's have it.
Shannon Quinn, followed by Bob Holtzclaw.
I guess I lied about not coming back up. Yeah, so 2 things. One, I live in Bella Palermo, and I look down into Lake Forest Sports Park, and it is a bright, luminous park. And it is so, it causes so much light noise, it's ridiculous. And it goes till 10 o'clock at night, and that is such a huge eyesore. If you're going to be adding more lights, into the park of Portola Park. It is going to add on to that. To address the questions that you've been asking very directly to my other neighbors, I can say that none of these other options were proposed. So I feel like it was a trick question in the sense that we were under the impression it was just the stadium lights that were being proposed tonight. And then suddenly a new agenda comes up and your questions are very pointed and very clear that you're trying to get around the stadium lights to allow for other lights. I want to voice my opinion that it is all of the lighted options that I'm against, in addition to the soccer field. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There's no, just to be clear, there's nothing tricky about this. I'm trying to get information from people, and we have a small group of people here. Clearly, there's a lot more people that are up there, and we haven't heard from them, and we have really one opportunity to do this. So I know there's a lot of electrical conduit going in, but we all know in practical terms it will probably never happen. So this is our opportunity to do it. If we are going to do it, now's the time. And I want to make sure we have a full, robust conversation about it. I think that there is a potential for some value adds by having some things that people might find as valuable amenities to the community. And I understand there's a lighting impact, but there's also benefits too. There are some people we heard that may enjoy actually going out there and going for a walk in the evening. And this would be a wonderful place to do it with their dog, and this would be a wonderful place to do it. And if we turn all the place dark, it's not going to happen. So those are the things, but there's nothing tricky going on here. I don't have any hidden agenda here. So thank you, though. I appreciate that. All right, colleagues.
I think there's another.
We have one more
Oh,
speaker.
yes, thank you.
Is it item number 15 or 16?
What is it?
Okay, this item.
Dog park, whatever.
Yes.
Okay. Bob Holzklauer, resident here. I think we can probably take care of the soccer field. If it'd be okay to take care of that situation, I will donate $2,000 to the city and to plant a tree in the middle of the soccer field. And at Scott Wasserman's choice of trees, I'll be glad to work out with you. I've got 3 houses here. I'm good for the money. The lighting for the dog park area, I don't think we really need it down there because it's at a different level. And if people want to walk around the park at night, you know, the park part, I can see that. But going down at the other end, I don't think that's a good idea, quite frankly. And I think we should stick to what we had. All these neighbors come up there. I was one of them, too. And I think we had a couple about how we should design this park. We had all these neighbors up there. And then all of a sudden, it just keeps growing and growing and growing after we decided what we wanted. So let's go back to where we started from, and I think that would be great. Thank you.
I appreciate that. But I just want to follow up and clarify that the alternatives that staff looks at here are certainly at least in part inspired by council direction and maybe more. I don't know. I wasn't here when the
That's
direction
correct.
was given,
It was
so.
2015, I mean, it was a while ago, but it was at least partly council direction.
Okay.
Leah, did you support these, or were you aware of these?
I was at that time just a resident attending the city council meetings, and I was very upset with the changes. I didn't think that any changes should be made. I think they expanded the size of the open grass area to facilitate soccer parks, and nobody in Portola Hills wants another soccer park. So that upset me. I'm agreeing with Bob Holzclaw. I would chip in that part of your money to help put a tree right in the center of that park, because I want it to be a passive, friendly community park. I don't want it to be to house soccer or any other formalized sport where people are meeting there every week and taking up all the parking spaces away from the community. I'm unhappy with them expanding the grass area, so I'm really unhappy with adding any additional changes beyond what was already changed beyond what the residents asked for in 2015. So that's why I'm so adamantly opposed to making any changes, because we've already made changes to what the residents wanted and they're not happy about it. So I'm not going to be raked over the coals for it. No, 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 no.
Okay, so
Mayor, we have one additional speaker that unfortunately had listed a different item.
Or are we taking public comment?
Well, public comment is coming in, and I'm happy to have it.
We have one more speaker, Ms. Doreen Campbell.
Hi, I'm Portola, 20-year Portola Hills resident, and I came to city council meetings with the planning of Concourse Park, which very happy with the outcome. It's a community park, which means the community uses it on a daily basis. It's not for parking. It's not for the, people that come in and use. It's for residents to enjoy. And the lighting should be low, just to enjoy the walkways, and for the residents to enjoy. And any lights higher than the regular walkway lights will disrupt, especially all the residents that are not able to come here because they have not even purchased those homes yet. So we're here mostly for the people that have yet become residents and paid taxes.
Can I ask you a clarifying question then?
Yes.
One of the items is alternative 2, dog park and walkway lighting. And what I thought I heard you say was you're not opposed to, that's right.
Walkway.
That's correct. I'm just reading, that's alternative 2.
Like Concourse Park has, where it,
I just want to clarify your words, so just help me.
Dog park, no,
So no dog park or no walkway lighting?
Beyond,
I'm trying to understand.
beyond what was already approved by the residents is what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay, so you don't want walkway lighting, you don't want dog park lighting? I'm just
What was
clarifying.
approved by previously in 2015, no changes.
Great, thank you. I just want to clarify.
Okay, so I think I've heard enough here tonight. So with all the information that we've received from lots of individuals, which is appreciative. Although I like the idea of pickleball and volleyball, that's probably not the best location for it, given some of the concerns residents have brought up. Also, the fact that these alternatives were at council direction from a council back in 2015, not really totally enthusiastic about voting on something like that. So far removed from being on the council at that point. So I would vote to just keep as is without any changes.
I will second that motion.
All right. Any more discussion, colleagues? Anything else to? All right. Let's go ahead and vote.
Motion carries 4-0.
Mr. Mayor, council members.
Yes.
I think you're probably going here, but there are additional actions to be taken as part of agenda item 15. So if the council wants, they could move staff's recommendation beyond the item that was just moved.
Okay.
I will make a motion to move, support staff recommendation of accepting the lowest bidder. Responsive bidder.
Just to clarify, there's
Remaining recommended action.
there's 8 items here. Nothing that we've done here is in conflict with anything of the 8. Just to clarify? Okay, so if we go with staff recommendation on these 8, you have the additional clarification on the, so just to clarify, that's your motion? as we
That's
gave
my
it.
motion.
Very good. I will second the motion. Any discussion? Go ahead and vote.
Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you. All right. Next up is update on affordable housing development partnership with National Community Renaissance. And to clarify, as I mentioned earlier, this parallels an item that's on the, I'm going to call it salmon agenda, item 3 on this other agenda as well. So we'll be dealing with both of those items simultaneously. Staff.
Yes, Mayor and members of the council, I'd like to introduce our Economic Development Manager, Carlo Tomaino, who will be leading the staff report tonight.
Thank you, Ms. City Manager, and good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. So, as some of you may recall, in December 2017, the city entered into an exclusive negotiation agreement with an affordable housing developer called National Community Renaissance, or National Core for short. The ENA provides for the potential contribution of $3.7 million from the city's affordable housing funding to offset the cost of building a 100% affordable housing project in the city of Lake Forest. Since that time, staff has been working with National Core to identify a location and evaluated approximately 100 sites throughout the community. National Core recently negotiated a purchase and sale agreement with the property owner for a property on Raymond Way. The project is required to follow the planning approval process. Community development will review the proposed plans for consistency with the general plan, zoning, and our development standards. And of course, National Core would be required to pull all planning and building permits required for the project. Tonight, staff is requesting direction from the City Council to negotiate an affordable housing agreement. That agreement would require National Corps to satisfy certain performance obligations before the city contributes funding for the project. The agreement is anticipated to return in October before the City Council for final approval. At this time, I would like to invite Alexa Washburn, who is the Vice President of Policy and Planning with National Corps, to provide an overview of the site selection process, as well as the development and financing options. In addition, we also have Mike Ruane, Executive Vice President, and Lorna Contreras in the audience to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carlo. Well, good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council members. Again, my name's Alexa Washburn. I'm Vice President of Planning with National Community Renaissance. And for those of you that may not be familiar with us, we are a nonprofit community development corporation, and we specialize in building and managing high-quality affordable housing paired with best practice supportive services. Over the past 27 years, we've grown to a company that employs 350 employees that oversee a portfolio of nearly 10,000 units that provide safe, decent, and affordable housing to nearly 30,000 residents. So this makes us the fourth largest nonprofit affordable housing developer in the nation. I think what makes us unique is that we are a full service, vertically integrated organization. We have everything in-house, from acquisitions, planning, and development, a very sophisticated financing team. We're also general contractors, so we build all of our communities, and we're invested in the long term through our operations and our property management division. And because affordable housing has a lot of checks and balances, we also have our own compliance division, asset management, and a whole supportive services arm through our Hope Through Housing Foundation. We are a local community builder. So here in Orange County, we own and operate currently about 800 affordable units. Some of our recent developments, our last two projects in the city of Yorba Linda are featured here, as well as our latest project in downtown San Clemente, which is a beautiful Las Palmas. We also have about 300 units that are currently in the pipeline in Orange County that are in the entitlement and financing phase. When we entered into the ENA with the city, we worked with staff to develop objectives for this project, objectives that we wanted to achieve. And first and foremost with this development is to address a significant and increasing need for affordable housing. Second is that we want this project to be compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. Third, to provide supportive services on site that are tailored to the needs of our residents. And fourth, for the project to be sustainable, not just environmentally sustainable, but also financially sustainable. And then lastly, in our search for a site, we wanted to focus on underutilized areas of the city or areas that are ripe for redevelopment. And I have to say, we have visited over 100 sites. We worked with Stream Realty, and we even narrowed down our search to 84 sites, which we conducted some very serious due diligence on. In fact, Carlo has that very, very large Excel table. But I'm happy to say that ultimately, we found a 3.74 acre site that lies within the El Toro Road Corridor General Plan Update Focus Area. This is an area that's looking to be designated as mixed use with a 32 dwelling units per acre. The site is generally west of El Toro Road, north of Raymond Way, and south of Jutewood Place. I love this location. It's very ideal because it's walkable. It's walkable to services, retail, and it's also currently served by existing OCTA bus service. In fact, it has a walk score of 88 out of 100. So a B+ is pretty darn good for Orange County and Lake Forest. So there's two development opportunities that I'm seeking guidance from the council on tonight with this particular site. Opportunity A is to utilize and leverage the original $3.7 million city contribution to develop an affordable 80-unit project on approximately half of the site. This would leverage, the city contribution would be leveraged to build a development that would cost approximately $47 million. And this results in a city subsidy per unit of about $46,000. The second opportunity is to maximize development of the site and to maximize the number of affordable units. For an additional city contribution of approximately $4.7 million, we would look at a 136 unit affordable apartment home community on the full 3.74 acres. Obviously, this allows us to leverage, maximize development of the site, maximize leveraging the city's contribution. So that city subsidy per unit then is reduced to about $34,000 per unit. So let's take a closer look at these two opportunities. Concept A, we would subdivide the site. The existing professional office building that fronts El Toro Road would remain. We would redevelop the western portion of the site by demolishing the existing office building along Raymond Way and building a 4-story courtyard building with approximately 80 units. This 80 units would consist of approximately 20 one-bedroom units, 44 two-bedroom units, and 16 three-bedroom units. We would provide a number of community amenities, including a community center that we would run our supportive services and also would be available to the surrounding community. A playground tot lot, teen area, barbecue picnic area. There's also laundry on each floor, and it is an elevator-served building. We would have approximately 100 dedicated parking spaces that are surface parked. The financial strategy for this opportunity, again, our primary financing vehicle would be 4% low-income housing tax credits. That's the 14 million line that you see there. We'd have about 12 million in MHP, that's multifamily housing program funds from the state. We'd have approximately 5 million in contribution from the County of Orange that we would be seeking. Again, leveraging the city's loan of 3.7 million. And then also we have some skin in the game with the developer equity contribution of 2.3 and deferred developer fee of about 200,000. So the total development cost would be about 47 million, again, for 80 units on approximately half of the site. Now, the second opportunity would be to maximize development of the entire 3.74 acres. This would yield an apartment home community that would consist of approximately 136 units. This would be spread between 2 buildings. We'd have one linear 3-story building along the northern portion of the property, and then one 4-story courtyard building along Raymond Way. And the unit mix would be approximately 34 one-bedrooms, 68 two-bedrooms, and 34 three-bedrooms. Because it's a larger project, we would provide a little bit more substantial community amenities, a larger community center to run our services, a swimming pool, playground tot lot, community gardens, barbecue area, again, laundry on each floor, and both buildings would be elevator served. Parking, we would have about 165 dedicated parking spaces, surface parked. The financial strategy for Concept B, again, we would utilize 4% low-income housing tax credits. We'd leverage those with state funding, that's the MHP funding of approximately 20 million. A heavy lift from the County of Orange, who we have met with and has so far supported the project. A city loan of approximately 4.7 million. Again, the developer equity contribution and deferred developer fee for a total project cost of 85 million. That would produce approximately 136 affordable units. Both options would adhere to the El Toro design guidelines, and so that calls for a craftsman architecture. And so this is what the project could conceptually look like when we apply that craftsman architectural design style. Both alternatives would also provide supportive services on site. And depending on our target population, we would look for our service providers. So for example, if our priority continues to be families, Families Forward would be an excellent example of our service provider here. But it's very important that we provide the services on site and allow our residents access to them. In fact, our mission as a company is to stabilize our residents in affordable housing, then give them the skill sets and education to ultimately launch them into market rate housing. And we have some success stories of that. Within the past 5 years in our community, our development community in the city of San Bernardino, we've had 4 residents that are now homeowners. The public process, either scenario, we are required to go through the public process. And so this isn't the last time that you will see us. We will have a series of community outreach meetings between now and October. We'd also be working with city staff to draft the affordable housing agreement that will be brought for approval to the city council in October. The community development department would review all planning applications, and we would go forward with public hearings before the Planning Commission, expected in early 2020. So again, in terms of next steps between now and October, we would develop that affordable housing agreement, conduct outreach with the goal of having a project entitled by March 2020. We'd spend much of 2020 securing our financing, begin construction in 2021, and have a grand opening celebration sometime in late 2022. And I just want to leave you with the final slide that highlights some of the project benefits. Again, either opportunity helps the city meet your regional housing needs allocation. The city is entering into the 6th RHNA cycle. Obviously, the 136 unit project provides more of an opportunity to meet your extremely low, very low, and low income RHNA, but the 80 unit project also would allow you to meet a portion of your RHNA. Again, it just addresses that significant and increasing need for affordable housing here. There is, unless you live under a rock, I think you probably see the headlines every day about the affordable housing crisis in California, but also here in Orange County, where the area median income is $97,900. That's the median income. So these are for folks that make 30 to 60% of that. We would deliver substantial on-site amenities and also off-site infrastructure improvements, and also direct and indirect jobs would be provided through this, through the construction and operations of the project. So that concludes my presentation. Again, Mike, Lorna, Carlo, and I are all available to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Anything else from staff?
Mayor and members of the council, this project was started probably 3 years ago, I believe, and so it's been a long time coming. And I'd like to commend National Corps for being so diligent in finding a site. I think this is an excellent site for affordable housing, and so I'm very excited about this potential partnership. One of the issues brought before you tonight, though, is whether to go with an 80-unit project or to go to the 130-unit project. So the funding source for this is your affordable housing in lieu fees, and those are one-time fees that you receive through development agreements for those developments that were too small to build affordable housing on site. So we've pulled this money together, and I want to emphasize it's one-time money. So once it's spent, redevelopment agencies are over, so we wouldn't get any more. And so I would caution the council in dedicating that additional $1 million at this point toward this affordable housing project. That $1 million could be used for other purposes. It could be used for permanent supportive housing elsewhere. It could also be used for homeless services. So we do not have other funding sources that could fund those two purposes. And so as your city manager, I would recommend to you that you pursue the 80 unit project initially. We could always come back and look at this in another 6 months. And at that point, we may feel more secure in moving toward the larger project. But my recommendation to you tonight would be to pursue the 80-unit project.
So, Madam City Manager, we're actually not voting on either one of these projects tonight because we haven't had public input on this yet.
No, what we're voting on tonight is, well, you are voting on tonight, is to move forward with a exclusive negotiating agreement. But in that, I believe National Corps would need some direction on which concept you're interested in having them start the entitlement process on.
So my other question would be, of the $4.7 million that we'd be loaning them, is that coming from our?
That's coming from our affordable housing in lieu fees. So
So
right now, the council,
So is that being a loan? Do they pay that back to the?
that's
to
paid back over 50 years.
to
So, to the
our
city.
Because the fact is that money is put aside that we actually may need to use for
Other
homeless
purposes.
things and stuff. So
It could be. You know, at this point, with our, with
What
what
is
we've
our
already done with National Corps, we have committed $3.7 million. So the question that has been raised through this development opportunity is whether the council wants to dedicate an additional $1 million. And so that's,
So 3.7 is what we. How much?
What
do we
we've
have? How
committed.
much do we have in our housing fund, low income housing fund?
let me have Carlo come up. He's the detail guy.
Thank you. So the fund balance at this time is approximately $5.8 million.
5.8 right now. Thank you, Carl.
What would be the ramifications of us hypothetically tonight choosing the first option with the 3.7 investment and later on deciding we want to expand the project? There going to be additional fees beyond the $1 million more if they have to come in and redesign it and do any more?
You know, I think that'd be a question for National Corps.
Mike Ruane, Executive Vice President. I think if, as noted, it was within the next 6 months, I think the window the city manager shared is a good one. And I know there's a lot of other factors at play. But, I think that would be the best window, and you have your general plan update. But certainly, that would be helpful.
So, have you purchased the land already?
We are in escrow.
For the whole 3.7.
Correct.
3.7.
And in the event we went with the 3.7 option, then and that was what stayed down the road, we would do a parcel map, and there might be some upgrade and refurbishment of the current office park, which might be warranted, and then the frontage on El Toro would stay as an office park. Under new management, I might add, under both scenarios, we're bringing in new management effective when we close escrow.
I have a few questions, and I don't know, Mr.
Ruane, yes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ruane, or if they should be directed to Ms. Washburn. So how are folks referred to your low-income housing program? How do you get the folks that are referred into to qualify for something like this?
Sure, and generally each city goes through a similar process. There's something what is known as a waiting list and a marketing plan. So once we're ready for what is known as lease up, let's say that's 3 months before we're ready to occupy, there's a marketing plan usually required by the city or the jurisdiction we work with, and an effort to have people indicate their interest on the waiting list. Other funding, if the county puts funding in it, they might also have a preference or a recommendation to make sure that marketing is countywide with their money. But it's a pretty straightforward process.
And on the application, do they ask if folks are U.S. residents or U.S. citizens?
They ask, I don't know if they can, to
So-
be honest. So whatever we.
County-funded dollars and city-funded dollars could potentially be housing folks who are not tax-paying citizens.
This came up in San Clemente and other cities. We will ask anything we can do through fair housing.
Okay.
So state and federal law preclude any landlord actually from asking some of those questions. I can share that our experience has been, again, the one thing that mitigates it, which has been sort of a misnomer, the low-income tax credit program, these are working, They might be working poor. These are retail workers, for example. They have jobs. Other than the case of public housing, that you have to have work and income, which requires, I think, a lot of the other requirements you're mentioning.
With all due respect, sir, we all know that there are illegal aliens actually working and getting paychecks.
Okay.
So
Well,
I would beg to differ on that
Well, I'm just saying,
verification
yeah.
process, but I totally understand. The other question I had was regarding the parking, the number of parking spaces. So I did a little quick math on the 80 unit, and if you had a family of 4, so in the 2-bedroom and 3 bedrooms, are the number of individuals that can occupy limited? Because even if you did some math on that, that's not enough parking spaces. Basically, if I'm looking at this right, parking is 1.25 per unit. So that's 1 car per unit. That doesn't seem like enough, and I feel like there would be some parking issues. So I know there's a formula, but
Sure. And I think the best way, again, we'd be going through the entitlement process. You have a community development department and city that has very high standards for development. And I think what would happen is both the standards and a case study. Our housing developments, which you can see in Yorba Linda and other, you can see what the parking requirements. It is generally lower than a market rate development in terms of car usage. As Alexa shared, and as what's happening in the economy, some people don't have more than 1 car, or they're ride sharing. So we would go through a case study of our current developments. San Clemente, as you're aware, is also is impacted by parking. Our development there has been well managed, and we manage it. So we don't like development that spills out in the neighborhood. So.
Okay, that was my concern. And lastly, your development in Yorba Linda, is that a mixed-use 38 as well? The pictures that I saw, was that also similar to what ours would be?
It's not Craftsman though.
Oh,
but
right. But
yeah.
as far as dwelling units, I'm sorry, mixed-use 38 dwelling would be the dwelling units, right? Would that be around the same?
No, it's bigger. It's bigger. So we can share all that. Both the first phase and second phase are beyond 38. It's 54 and 60. Yeah, 54 and 69.
Okay, so our whichever concept we go with, they're actually larger than the examples shown in the Yorba Linda.
Yeah, it's mostly for form, and the total Yorba Linda project would be bigger. They're right next to each other, and they're open for tours without really on call and even impromptu for both those properties. That a lot of elected officials are actually touring that project because the surrounding retailers and the residents and the programs, they're very proud of that because a lot of their workers are able to be there.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Well, I'm still wanting to get public input, so unless there's specific questions that can't wait till then, we will go ahead and open it up for public input.
We have 2 speakers, Madeline Hernies, followed by Jack Hollander.
Hi, good evening again. Madeline Hernies with Families Forward, and I just wanted to express my support for the project. We have an incredible, tremendous partner in National Core and the work that we're doing to create more affordable housing for Lake Forest families. Serving the families that we see every day, affordable housing makes an incredible difference in their lives. The families that we see are most likely minimum wage earners or maybe have fallen on hard times and have lost their job. So with the supportive services that we can provide, getting them back on their feet, affordable housing is a critical tool in that. Most of the families that we're serving are spending probably 70 to 80% of their income on housing, which makes it incredibly challenging, that 30 to 20% that's left over for food, transportation, childcare. I am a new mother, so now I know how much childcare actually costs. It is very expensive, and it leaves very little wiggle room for any crisis that comes their way. More affordable housing is a tremendous need, and we just wanted to express our support for the project. And thank you for your commitment to more affordable housing. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good evening, Jack Hollander, El Toro High School educator, retired.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. And I wanted to build a little on what Andrea Alexander spoke earlier on homelessness and the need for housing for homeless. And I know that works in part with what National Corps has presented for you today. This is stuff that I know many of you already know. I know Mayor Teddimer attended the Homelessness 101 several weeks ago, and some of you will be attending later this week. There are two different models for providing for homeless housing. One is the old idea was the treatment model. And that was where you would, provide soup kitchens and occasional beds at night. And eventually the long-term goal is people would find their way into housing. Beginning with the President George W. Bush's administration in the early 2000s, the model changed, and it was mandated through the HUD that the plan is housing first. The easiest way to end homelessness is to put people in homes and give them homes. One of the programs that I think would be ideal for the city of Lake Forest is what's called rapid rehousing. This is for non-chronic, that is people that don't have medical needs. Rapid rehousing, similar to what National Corps is proposing. Immediate and long-term housing, moving assistance, on-site support that would be tapered gradually, including job training, coordination with meals, meal assistance program, and rental assistance. And again, the ultimate goal is self-sufficiency and independence. There are several communities that have instituted programs like this, and to some extent, I recommend that you be in touch. I'm sure you have been with the City of Riverside, which is meeting high standards of compliance on providing housing for homeless. In Orange County, Santa Ana has made great strides forward in this area as well. As a teacher, I do want to point out to you, homelessness is a problem. Homelessness, I have had students, and again, this is anecdotal, not statistical, that have come to school after spending the night in car. They sleep in their car, their housing is in their car. The McKinney-Vento Act through the Department of Education has a different standard for housing. Housing insecure. This would include people who are multiple families living in one small dwelling, one small apartment. This is a problem in our district. That has reached Saddleback Valley. And I hope that there will be a manager, Rose, you mentioned that by having the 80 unit option, there may be other money available as an option for other homeless assistance down the line, and that may be a way for you to go in that regard. And again, I'm hearing really good things from National Corps and Family First in meeting some of these needs for those that can initially support it. I just want to remind you that homelessness is an issue that is approaching rapidly, and we need to address that. And I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mayor, I have one more speaker card,
Please.
Mr. Martin Henderson.
Hello, Council. Just want to take a moment to, first of all, to thank everyone here for this project. I'm sympathetic to affordable housing, and I got here a little late, and so I'm not sure how much these units are going to cost. Are they truly affordable? Second is there's some issues I think that are significant, affecting quality of life of people who already live in that neighborhood, as well as people who use El Toro Road. That's where the post office is. Raymond is where the post office is. And you're talking about adding, 160 cars at least to that area. And it's already, the post office is already overcrowded. Egress and ingress are already bad there. And this is not going to help, not one bit. So that's something that needs to be measured in your decision, because you owe something to the quality of life of people who already live there. That's a high density area, and they deserve to be taken care of as well. I mean, I understand these people want to sell homes, and that's great, but I'm not sure that this is the project for that area.
Thank you very much. Any other blue cards? None. Facebook Live?
No, sir.
All right, thank you. We will close public comments and bring it back to the dais. Unless there's anything else from staff?
No, just a reminder, staff recommendation is to have the council direct staff to negotiate an affordable housing agreement with National Corps so we can move forward with this project.
So as so eloquently spoken by our former El Toro Charger teacher here, there are students and there are families within our city of Lake Forest that are struggling month to month, week to week. And I know Saddleback College has many of the kids that attend Saddleback College that sometimes live in their cars. Do we give any, you said that to get on the process is a waiting list. We're now being told by the state of California and other agencies that we're responsible for our own homelessness. And so the fact is that, there's beds available in North Orange County for our homeless, but they won't allow our homeless to be placed up there because they're so-called Lake Forest homeless. So my question is that, do we have a preference that, Lake Forest family would be on the list first? I mean, it's a simple question. We're being brought into this thing about, homeless. There's homeless beds available in North County, but we can't take our homeless there because they're only for their people.
Right, and I'm, we're well aware, all three of us are Orange County residents, and we're following both the local and the regional challenges. In terms, as I shared, fair housing, we can't just designate and require it be a local resident. Same way your parks can't be close to non-residents.
Beds for homelessness, we
But generally what cities do, and I think working with your staff, the cities do the outreach and the marketing so that, for example, working with the school district or Saddleback College, they would know their students or families that are homeless and may be able to help them get on the list for the units. And so I think most communities have encouraged and advocated for their residence areas to do it that way. It's, as a landlord, we have to do things in terms of the order. And it really doesn't matter whether it's affordable housing, but I completely understand it, but it's very much like the parks, not restricting it to residents. But generally, the city and the community will do marketing that's proactive and reach those people I think you're trying to reach.
Because, if we're going to put $4.7 million of our city funds into a project for affordable housing, and the state, the county is saying that they've got homeless beds in Santa Ana, in Anaheim, in Tustin, but only residents from those communities can be placed there. So if I'm using $4.7 million of city funds, I'll be darned if I'm going to let people from other areas come in to get, when I have families within my own city border that are struggling and kids are coming to school without meals, they're sleeping in their cars, they're sleeping in front of their grandma's house in a car. It just, I think that, we got to bifurcate this, because the fact is they're pushing it to where we can't use the beds in other parts of the county because they're so-called for their homeless.
Sure.
So I think that we have to take care of our own citizens, I think, first.
Yeah, and again, I'm only talking about the housing. The shelter can have its own rules and operations.
But they're the ones causing this whole thing.
Okay.
So
yeah, and I do want to share, and you can.
My frustration is evident. I'm sorry. It's not that I thank you for what you do, but Families Forward is a great advocate, and they think the world of you. So
okay, and I did want to share. Just we are very familiar with the surrounding community, and the old the El Toro area, and. Just to reinforce, we're not flippers, and you can go to our product. We're actually part of the community. We work with it, and as Alexis said, it's not just about sharing community center and amenities and helping, let's say, a financial literacy or a general literacy. So those apartments across the street, there will be not just a parking management, but also traffic management. And it is our intent, as you saw, to not aggravate or create. Again, we're very familiar with the El Toro corridor and the access movements there. So we're very mindful of that, and that's particularly will be addressed through the process. But that we will be on site. We're not contracting out the property management. You can hold people accountable.
That was one of my primary concerns as well with this particular location. Thank you for coming back up. Is that area gets so much traffic, and there's already tremendous parking problems.
Sure.
And I'm looking at the number of okay, so if we did the 80 units, they're getting 100 parking stalls. I'm really worried that that's not going to be enough, considering the trouble that we have in all of our other apartment communities and how they're using residential areas to park, and now we have to permit park half the city. You know, that's a huge concern of mine. So I don't know what we can do to improve that, because there's literally no additional parking available on site for any of the people that would be living in this area.
So, yeah.
What do you have to say about that?
So there'd be three things. First, we would have to make sure there's adequate parking for what we need. Second, we would do a parking plan and look at whether we can create more spaces on the current site. The current site is, as you may be aware, that office, that's a 1970s or 80s park. And the parking spaces and some of the flow is very antiquated. I think, and we've spent time there. I mean, we look at this, and I think there could be a better parking configuration and actually yield more spaces, and when we come back we could actually provide more parking. We are as concerned as the city about parking management. We do not, the first project we have in Lake Forest where we have parking spill out in the community will be the last project we have. And so what you'll see is we do parking management. Our residents are expected to use their parking spaces or the parking spaces on site. And again, what we'll see, and what's nice about this site is it's very walkable. It is having multiple cars is too expensive for many of these residents, but there will be we will manage it. And with the smaller project, you're going to have more flexibility to actually work through the parking and maybe do nighttime parking on the office park area, which I think would be the most cost effective. We're going to own both. We'll have a manager for both. There's no weekend or office parking demand for that type of use. So, but I think, you know, we've also been encouraged, whether we sell it, that some upgrades to that property would be suggested.
Okay, thank you. Now, as far as the affordability of the project, we're looking at apartment homes. These are not going to be facilities people are going to be trying to own. They're just going to be placement housing to get them into more permanent supportive housing, correct?
Exactly.
What type of rents are we looking at? Is it going to be relative to the ratio of how much income they have?
Sure.
Okay.
And the range is 30 to 60% of area median income, which in Orange County is very high. So, you know, the retail workforce, as I think Alexis shared, it's a staggering 90,000 plus in Orange County. And that's what they base the AMI on. If you set aside, when you look at our Yorba Linda project, we also have set aside some units for what is known as transitional aged youth. Kids that grow out of the foster care system are actually at very high risk of becoming homeless. In that case, the city asked we set aside some units there, and I would almost call that homeless prevention. Those might be, so depending on what the community requirements are, what you see as unique needs, but those don't require a lot of parking and cars. Again, it's a different population. So those rents would maybe be lower generally.
If we were to approve the project tonight, how long would it take you to get this done?
We are.
We're not approving it.
Yeah.
Well, just hypothetically, I want to get an idea of how long it would take to do this project.
We are going in tandem with the general plan update. So the general plan update would provide the general plan and zoning for this site. If that's on track for January. So January we'd get our entitlements, and we would just move as fast as we can. And again, I think the county support is to the city's participation on that is going to be very helpful. There isn't a lot right now in the pipeline here in this sub-region. So I think there'd be a lot of support for getting this project moving quicker.
So fast, how fast? 6 months, 9 months, 12 months?
In terms of breaking ground, it'd be another 12 months is about as quick.
Yeah, so we would anticipate entitlements by February, March 2020, kind of concurrent with the general plan. It would take approximately a year to finance the project. That includes the state funding, the county funding, and then it's about an 18-month construction schedule. So we're looking at a grand opening in late 2022.
Okay. I want to get an idea of the actual construction, how long that would take.
18 months.
Okay, thank you.
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I certainly share concerns about traffic, and this is probably not going to be surprising because I sort of alluded to this when we had the general plan conversation about some of the higher densities that were contemplated in the traffic implications. Obviously, El Toro right there potentially amplifies that. What kind of density are we talking about here? Dwelling units per acre? I don't see it, but maybe I missed it.
Sure. Mayor and council, so right now, project is being evaluated along with the general plan update as an MU 32, so 32 units per acre designation. In addition, National Corps would request some density bonus, so I think that puts us somewhere about 35 units to the acre for this project.
Aren't we anticipating the RENA number to come in at about 33?
You know, right now we're not sure. So what we've done as part of the general plan is recommended that the council look at an MU32 designation as opposed to MU25 to make sure that we are maybe trying to keep up with RENA. We don't have those projections just yet. Our understanding is that those will come out later, maybe toward the end of the year, but we're hedging our bets. And just so you know, we're also looking at the environmental impacts of each of these focus areas as part of the general plan. So the evaluation on an environmental basis is the council direction, which would be consistent with this project at this time.
And the 32 that you talked about, was that just for the 80 units or the 136?
I can't do the math right now in my head, but I believe they're very similar. They're in the 30s
Here comes
for both.
Help is on its way.
Okay, very good.
No problem. The 80 unit development is approximately 39 to 40 dwelling units per acre because we would be utilizing the density bonus, and the 136 unit project is about 35 dwelling units per acre.
So are we looking at a 4-story duplex? Would it be 4 stories or 3?
Well, so the 80 unit concept is a 4-story courtyard, like U-shaped building. The 136 unit project has 2 buildings. The building to the north, it would be 3 stories. That's the linear building. I can kind of come back here. Yes, so this shows the 80 unit concept. That would be 4-story courtyard building. And then the 136 unit concept, the linear building in the north part, the northwest, that's 3 stories. And then the building along Raymond Way, the courtyard U-shaped building, would be 4 stories.
So for the 136 unit building, it's the 80 unit plus
Correct.
the
one
extra
3-story
56 units. Okay. All right.
Hang on, let me just finish up. I also share all the concerns about parking that was brought forward. That concerns me. The height also, we generally don't find stuff quite this tall, and I think I might have mentioned that during our conversation, and the density you've already answered for me. This seems to me a little unusual in that they're sort of being given a green light, and then they're going to go talk to the community. And it seems like, why wouldn't we go talk to the community first and get their input before we give a green light? Because they're actually, seems like we should go out and get to the community, say, what are your thoughts around this? And then we can have the benefit of that versus this is coming and we want to talk to you about it. But maybe I'm missing something, so help me.
Well, there are 2 tracks here that we're doing at the same time. So the first would be the negotiating the affordable housing agreement with National Corps to allow them to move forward with developing. But you would still have this entitlement track. So there is no guarantee that at the end, the council's going to approve the project. So it's counterintuitive, but they're on 2 parallel tracks. Because you move forward with an affordable housing agreement tonight or creating one, it doesn't mean you're greenlighting this necessarily. It still has to go through entitlement. It still has to go through the planning commission. There are community meetings that will be held.
Okay, thank you. All right, I think for the reasons I've articulated, I do have concerns. Not that I don't think affordable housing is needed and this may be a good place, but I don't feel like I can quite connect the dots to my satisfaction at this point. So I would like to rather get community input in advance so we can kind of make sure this is going to be a better fit. So that's kind of where I sit right now. It's not a comment about National Corps or the location of the project. Maybe all these things could be cured, but I'm a little reluctant to stride out into an agreement and then come back and try to go the other way. So I'm struggling a little bit at this point. So colleagues, I'll leave it to you.
Well, is there any way that we can bring this back after we hear from the
Hold on,
community
I
in
was going
October?
to propose something.
So I too have those same concerns. In fact, the public hasn't had an opportunity to chime in, and so
I think there will be a time for public comment, and I think this project, as mentioned, has been in works for a really long time. It was really difficult to secure a location. It's taken many years to actually find a location, although there's a lot of holes in affordable housing, and that's at the federal level. You know, we just absorbed 1 million undocumented immigrants, and they all have housing, yet our U.S. citizens are living on the street in Skid Row. That's a different story, and unfortunately, I know my place in the world, and I can't fix that. But I do understand the need for affordable housing, especially folks that are on a lower income bracket. These are working individuals, not homeless, but on the verge or you know, living very close paycheck to paycheck. So my proposal would be to just move forward on the 80 unit concept A, and at the same time get our concerns addressed about the parking and also some other the things that we mentioned this evening. And of course, all that information comes back to us when we need to make the decision on the project.
I'll second that motion primarily because at this point, all we're doing is saying, let's take a closer look and let's get the community involved and let's find out what everyone thinks. And then through that process, we're going to hash this out and we're going to figure out the best way to do it, best way to lay out the parking, the best way to have the least amount of impact on the community around it. I think that this is the first step, and it's kind of gray right now, but I think that we'll find clarity once we begin the actual process. There is a process that has to undergo. So I support this. I think it's a great thing to do. You know, housing we want to get people off the streets and we want to keep them off the streets. It's just a matter of doing this where it has the least impact on the community around it. So I second the motion.
Carl, you wanted to? Yes, please.
Yes, Mayor and Council, I would just like to provide a point of clarification for the City Council. So this is really just the first meeting in a series of meetings about this project. What we would do with National Core is hold some community meetings, one in September, one in October, before the affordable housing agreement actually comes before you. Mm-hmm. What we're asking for tonight is just permission to negotiate the agreement. We would hold some community workshops, get that feedback, incorporate that feedback into our staff report back to you once the affordable housing agreement is ready for your review. And then of course, as part of the entitlement process, there's going to be more public outreach, more meetings. National Core is going to have to refine their plan with community development and make sure that we meet parking, the height requirements. There's going to be a traffic study. All of those things are part of that environmental process. So we're looking to get the project started now because it's been in the works for some time, and you know, we think that we have a good site here after all of the site selection. And just to reiterate, there will be some meetings going on in the next couple of months, and that feedback will be provided to the council along with the agenda report when we bring back the agreement.
And this is in line with our strategic plan. When we approved RENA numbers a few months back, this was one of the areas that we had discussed possible redeveloping. So it's not a surprise to look at this particular area for redevelopment. So I support the project.
And so really all the things that you said can happen don't need any sort of an agreement. They can do all those things today, right?
Right.
You mean as far as the community outreach?
Yes.
That can be started right away. The agreement is important because in order for them to obtain project financing, National Core needs to have a commitment from the city that shows that the local agency has skin in the game and has funding committed to the project.
Okay, so I'm a little confused because I was heard there wasn't a commitment, but now you're saying there is a commitment.
Well, I'm saying the affordable housing agreement would provide that formal commitment. And that would allow them to go out and secure some project financing, which, as you have seen in the presentation, requires multiple funding sources.
Oh, I understand. I'm just saying, but to me, I thought I heard that this wasn't anything more than just a green light to have them go do work. That part, I said, I'm fine with that. Help me connect the dots and I might get there. But then my hearing is we're basically signing away quite a chunk of money.
Well, if you go with the recommended action tonight, you're allowing us to negotiate the agreement. Uh-huh. And as part of that, National Core would be holding meetings. You're not committing to the funding until it comes back to you in October and the council considers it at that time. And at that point, you would have some initial feedback from the community.
Yeah, I guess my concern is that some of these things here concern me, and it concerns me at a little higher level. that I feel like I need to get a better understanding. I was here when El Toro, and many probably were, when El Toro Road was terrible. And we worked hard to try and reduce traffic and get it opened up. And so when I see a project with these kind of densities right on top of it, and maybe again, I can get these issues behind me, I have a concern about that. We seem like we're potentially going to start moving in a different direction, not the one that I knew we fought hard to cure a long time ago. That's why those concerns are for me. I have history with that.
And my concerns would be, as someone that has spent the last 2.5 years working in the city of Irvine, seeing what the high density had done to many of the major arteries through Irvine, and the complaints that the city council got because of those high density projects that brought the excess traffic. And we've actually in time and time again, one of the number one concerns of our residents is traffic. So we're adding this project along our major corridor, El Toro Road, that will affect everybody that's trying to get to the freeway from Portola Hills to Foothill Ranch, from Santa Margarita to Mission Viejo. So,
Go ahead.
Mr. Tomaino, if we agree to negotiate, allow National Court to negotiate the agreement, would it be possible, that doesn't commit the city to anything, and in fact,
3.7
we would, financially, does not commit the city to anything, and in fact, we could withdraw, I mean, the project would, in effect, not even need to happen if there are certain concerns that don't get addressed between now and the fall.
So the affordable housing agreement would contain various provisions regarding performance. For example, such as obtaining all project financing, such as obtaining the entitlements from the city. So those issues would be clarified as part of the entitlement process, and we as a city wouldn't be on the hook for that money unless and until National Corps satisfies all the requirements of the affordable housing agreement, because we wouldn't want to risk any of the city's money for any other project.
All right, well, I guess I would have preferred a little more information, to provide a little more information up front to sort of cure some of the things that concerns me before I would want to go into negotiations, because to me, it feels like if you're sort of telegraphing, generally you're on board. I know we could stop it. I understand we could, but you're also, I think, there is a form of a commitment there. And I would prefer that we get some of these things addressed in advance. So I still remain concerned about the implications of the project. I'm not saying I'm opposed to affordable housing. I support it, and this may be a great location. The density does concern me, but there's no new news there, because I expressed this when we did the general plan discussion some time ago. Because I'm hearing the density bonus that'll push us to 40, 39 to 40, and I think you may recall I had concerns when we're getting to those kind of numbers.
So, Mr. Mayor, are you asking for an EIR and a traffic study before an agreement can be made by National Corps and negotiated at least?
I'm not suggesting you have a complete EIR, but at least some sense of what the implications are for these things. So at least I get a better glimpse in that what I'm talking about, what we are asked to consider, has a path forward.
I agree with the mayor.
Can I make a suggestion?
Please.
It might be helpful. Why don't we bifurcate, at least in our mind, from our side, the way the city manager framed it originally before the presentation. The decision was between whether it's 3.7. A larger project would require 4.7. The direction that's very helpful to us is if there is council sentiment that the 4.7, at least tonight and until things change, would preclude potential other options, and that we should plan on 3.7 and disconnect the unit counts. So our agreement when we won the RFP through the city required us to come back with you with actually details, some concepts, because the direction at that time from the council was, what is it going to look like? What would it look? So we provided two options of how we would use it, and primarily to also show you the contrast. Our intent was to acquire the property. It doesn't, and the most helpful thing tonight would be to know that the 3.7, which is your housing trust allocation, the original amount, and is pretty much, we should assume that's going to be subject to your concerns, the city's financial commitment. And tonight was about, with 4.7, here's the type of project we could do. And we wanted to show you something realistic. And again, Alexa happens to head our planning department. She does CEQA for city. You know, we understand your concerns. We're not pure just developers, as we stated. So if that's helpful, that's really the direction we need tonight. And I think, you know, again, the city manager said it well. If we shouldn't assume an allocation of more than 3.7, which was the original allocation, that's very helpful. And then we can make our own decisions on how we go forward with the acquisition.
Okay.
Yep.
So we do have a motion on the floor. Unless there's a desire to amend that motion, we do have a motion to go forward. So unless there's a substitute motion, which I think is trying to honor your notion that if the council could give direction on the 3.7 versus the 4.7 and call that a night, potentially, that's another potential option.
Well, my motion was to basically stick to the original 3.7. So whatever dwelling units that looks like, that was the intent of my motion.
And I seconded that motion.
Well, I'm sorry to be, so $3.7 million, what is your motion committing to?
$3.7 million that the city contributes for affordable housing.
Is this going to an agreement?
A negotiation towards an agreement for National Corps, to get their financing.
That still puts me in the same spot. It didn't change my position. If they were just looking for information about which we were tilting, that's one thing, but it's actually saying, go ahead and start a negotiation. That's a different.
Well, it's kind of the same principle that we do with any type of development in the city. I mean, whether it be Toll Brothers or wherever it is, it comes before the council first. We sign an agreement for them to begin the EIR, and then when the environmental studies are done, then it comes before the council at a later date, and that's when the official decision gets made. So it's the same process as when all the Portola Hills developments were done, when Baker Ranch was done. It's not promising that we're going to follow through with today. It's just here's an agreement. We're going to get the process started. Once the process is started, now we're going to come back and we will decide at that later date yes or no. This isn't locking us into a finalized agreement. We get to make that decision after the community workshops are done and everything else is completed. Am I understanding that correctly?
But to me, there's also a bit of the feel of the Boys and Girls Club where they want an assurance in advance without providing some of the information that would be helpful when you were making that consideration for that approval. And that's where like I said, there's specific things I'm highlighting here that are my concern. And some level of information that would address those to my satisfaction would be helpful, because then I could see, I can see there's a path forward. It's not going to be a huge impact, et cetera, versus we'll go look at that later, but let's go ahead and sign something up and we'll look at that later. That's what I'm hearing. Go ahead.
Might I suggest that tonight's vote merely be about confirming that the $3.7 million that the council identified in the original RFP to the affordable housing providers, that you're confirming that, yes, that would be the budget should the council enter into an affordable housing agreement with an affordable housing developer.
I can support that, because I'm not hearing we're negotiating an agreement. You're just telegraphing to them.
Yes.
We're expressing a level of interest on something, but it's not a commitment to negotiate anything.
Correct. We're confirming that dollar amount, and then we can let National Corps take that information, and then we can come back and do this another time.
That's my motion.
Yes, that was Niki's motion.
That was your motion? I thought I heard negotiations in yours.
No, because I'm following the language of this piece of paper, but basically, from what I understand, the gist of it is here. This is our budget. Yeah.
Yes, and I think that information is helpful to National Corps, and they can come back and.
But it's still giving you the green light to go negotiate.
No, it's not. All we're doing is
that's what it says in the line item.
No. All that's doing is you're just confirming the 3.7 million you identified in the RFP when that was done. You're confirming that to National Core,
Well, and I'm just to pick up
which
on-
differs from the recommended action.
Well, number 2 says direct staff to negotiate an affordable housing agreement with National Core.
Yeah.
Yes, which differs from the recommended action.
Well, I don't know that that's true. But regardless, if that's your motion, that we're going to telegraph an interest in 3.7 without negotiating agreement, is that your motion?
Yes.
Okay. I will ask the
I
person
will,
with the
I will second that
Okay.
for the third time.
All right. Let's go ahead and vote.
Motion passes 3-1 with Councilmember Voights abstaining and Councilmember Robinson absent.
Thank you very much. Item 17, City Council Street Sweeping Subcommittee Status Report.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'd like to introduce Mike McConaughey. He's the city's maintenance manager and was the liaison to the City Council Subcommittee that worked on this. For a brief presentation, it's really providing an update on the City Council Street Sweeping Subcommittee actions and their recommendations tonight, and we seek some direction.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, City Council. In 2018, while Councilmember Basil was Mayor Pro Tem, she requested staff present a general staff report on street sweeping and parking restrictions. Subsequently, the City Council formed a subcommittee comprised of Councilmembers Basil and Robinson to review the city's street sweeping program and provide input back to the City Council. At the subcommittee's request, staff improved public awareness and outreach by completing an interactive street sweeping map, as well as providing other more user-friendly information on the city's website to help residents understand the program and their street sweeping schedule. The subcommittee also reviewed the street sweeping contract and discussed possible changes to sweeping frequency. Discussions were held to potentially combine a street sweeping request for bid with the cities of Mission Viejo and Laguna Hills, as well as changing the frequency of sweeping. Options reviewed by the subcommittee included continuing the current practice of street sweeping all arterial and residential streets on a weekly basis, changing arterial and residential street sweeping to twice per month for all streets, maintaining weekly arterial street sweeping but changing the residential street sweeping to twice per month. The subcommittee requested information on areas where street sweeping is ineffective due to the large number of parked cars. The subcommittee determined that these hotspots exist throughout the community, but they represent a relatively small percentage of the overall residential street system. The subcommittee concluded that a targeted approach to these locations would be appropriate rather than citywide street sweeping restrictions, and that potential additional parking restrictions should continue to be reviewed on a request-driven basis. The city currently has a policy in place to evaluate street sweeping parking restrictions upon request. City staff also performed a pilot project along Moncliff Drive and Rimhurst Drive, suggesting significant and lasting results are best achieved using permanent signage and enforcement in those hotspot areas we discussed. This evening, staff is requesting City Council provide direction on the following subcommittee recommendations: to include the cities of Mission Viejo and Laguna Hills in a future request for bid for street sweeping services. Number 2, regarding the city's street sweeping schedule for a contract beginning July 1st, 2020. The subcommittee recommended street sweeping twice per month on residential streets and weekly on arterials. It would also include twice per month in some of those hotspot areas as well. Number 3, evaluating select hotspot locations on an individual basis per existing city council policy. The locations include the light industrial area near El Toro Road and Geronimo Road, 2nd Street north of Los Alisos, High Ridge Way in Portola Hills, Moncliff Drive and Rimhurst Drive, and Gowdy Avenue. That concludes my presentation for this evening, and be glad to answer any questions.
Can you repeat the last one?
The last one is on Gowdy Avenue.
Oh, thank you, Gowdy.
All right, thank you very much. Any public comment cards?
I have one speaker card from Bob Holtzclaw.
Hello, Bob Holtzclaw, resident here of Lake Forest. I think even in the last city council, we talked about 39 weeks of street sweeping. I think that's quite adequate During the summer, all you're doing is just picking up dust. The only times that probably a street sweeper would pick up even more would be in the fall and also in the winter, because you got a lot of stuff from the rain pouring down into the gutters and sweeping. You know, I had a laugh. My street sweeper comes every Tuesday or Wednesday, and someone had dropped some Burger King wrappers and cups on the street. The street sweeper doesn't pick that up anyway. It's the neighbor's actual problem there to pick stuff up in front of their house. The sweeper came by and kicked it back out into the middle of the street. So it's not really, it's not a big problem with that kind of stuff. Right now, all we're just picking up is dust, from maybe the gardener left with a few little grass cuttings in the gutter, and it sweeps that up just fine. Like I said, in the fall, you get a lot of leaves, and in the winter, you get a lot of rain, and which washes a lot of stuff out into the gutter area. Summer and spring, there's no reason to go every week. It's, all he's doing is just going in between the cars. That's the biggest problem, really, is, I took a picture once for the last city council meeting where the street sweeper is going down the middle of the road for over a block, and he can't even get into some of the cul-de-sacs with everybody parking on both sides, because some of the cul-de-sacs are small. So that's our biggest problem with street sweeping. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other?
I have 2 additional cards. Andrew O'Connor, followed by Larissa Clark.
So I'm glad this is coming up again, because I've come and talked about it quite a few times. 2 things I want to talk about is, number one, the city was incorporated December 1991. We're coming up on 28 years. We still don't have a parking ordinance. So until you get that parking ordinance straightened out, you can't really do anything, right? So like he says, I've seen it to my own neighborhood. Sweepers going down the middle of the street. Allen Sweeping, they love us because they don't cost us anything. I mean, it's ridiculous what we pay those guys. I've already given you a spreadsheet of my analysis that no one's ever gotten back to me that was full of hot air, but I'm telling you, the amount we're paying, we can buy that truck every year. So I've never gotten a feedback from the department saying, no, Mr. O'Connor, this is wrong and this is what it should be. Secondly, I think this idea of reaching out to Laguna Hills and Mission Viejo, I don't think it's a good idea. If you're going for commodity pricing, say for instance, we want to buy red clay for our sports park. Yeah, then we reach out to Laguna Hills and Lake Forest and Mission Viejo. Instead of us buying 2 tons with them, now we need to buy 10 tons. So now we get a lower price for that dirt. Street sweeping, the dynamics of the communities are totally different, okay? Look at Mission Viejo. They got 3 or 4 long hills, La Paz, Oso, Olympiad, that truck has to go up. Yeah, we have a few here, Bake and maybe Glen Ranch, but when they look at that, they say, oh man, that's a 3-degree slope, we got to go 21 miles on it. I don't think, in my opinion, going in with the other cities makes sense for this type of thing. It's labor intensive. We're not talking all straight streets. Laguna Hill's different, Mission Viejo's different, we're different. We have Foothill, we got Baker. It's just, I don't see the cost savings in that. So bottom line is, you need a parking ordinance first before moving forward.
Thank you.
Larissa Clark, followed by Martin Henderson.
Hi, Larissa Clark, resident of Lake Forest since 1998. And I live 1 street over from Gowdy that turns into Kavanaugh. It was like Gowdy and then me. And so please, Gowdy turning into Kavanaugh and around that corner really needs some street sweeping. Part of Gowdy has permitted parking, so that I don't know what type of challenge that is. But if you could even make parking available on one side of the street, and then that, second week, whatever, they sweep one side, and then 2 weeks later, move it and sweep the other side. That would really help cut down on a lot of trash that is there, and also drug use and paraphernalia and commercial vehicles work on their vehicles there, and there's just a lot of yucky stuff. And then people just empty out, all their in and out cups too. So because of all the cars parked, they just drive down the middle. And none of that ever really gets cleaned up. But if the children are playing in that park or the basketball, or people are running and walking using that green space, they're in danger of really gross stuff that we see. So I'm just trying to say every other week or twice a month is fine, but please consider Gavanaugh, which comes off a Ridge Route and then turns into Kavanaugh. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Martin Henderson.
Hey, Council, I think I'd like to start with a quote from Mayor Teddemer on the last item. He said, "It seems like we should get the input of the community." And it sounds to me like you guys have already. The resident satisfaction survey, I believe, said it was okay, that the residents of this city were okay with every other week street sweeping services. So I think there's your answer. Additionally, I think that a council should negotiate and play a little bit hardball with these guys. Their responsibility is to clean the streets. And I think I would try to negotiate a pre-runner. If their streets, they're dirty, if the parking's an issue and whatnot, send somebody in there ahead of time with a broom and have them sweep the stuff out in the middle of the street so that it can be cleaned up. I don't think it's such a big deal for you guys to push back against these guys. Okay, we don't have to bend over. We can fight back and we can negotiate what we want out of the deal. Okay? I hope everybody understands exactly what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. Don't just roll over, okay? You're representing all of us. You're not here to line the pockets of somebody who's helping you guys get elected or anything like that. These companies are in business, but you're negotiating for us. And that's why I think a pre-runner is a good idea, and I think listening to the residents is a good idea. And I think Mayor Teddemer, you're the one that laid the groundwork for this. On the last item, you said, well, I think we need some feedback. You've gotten the feedback.
Thank you very much. Any more public comments? Facebook Live? No, sir. All right. We will close the public comment and bring it back to the dais. Just to clarify the comments about particular streets, are those on your hotspot list? Or Gowdy and that area, so those are already on the...
Yeah, so we have an extensive list of hotspots, both from residents' concerns and identified by our own street sweepers and stuff. We went over that exhaustively with the subcommittee. The subcommittee, through that process, identified 6 particular locations that staff was already working on doing that. So this item before you is informational in nature, to let you know that staff already has the policy and the ability to go forward and start analyzing those areas. If there's any other areas that council is concerned about, we can certainly look at those areas also.
Okay.
But they are typically complaint driven, and we do it individual basis.
Appreciate that. You were on the subcommittee, so...
So going back to Gowdy, so Gowdy all the way as it winds and it turns into Kavanaugh, how we're looking at sweeping just Gowdy at this point. We're requiring cars to move. How much farther would we have to extend to include the turn at Kavanaugh? Because I know, like I've mentioned in the subcommittee, I've spoken with residents that live on Kavanaugh, and they're very upset because the way that the traffic flows and the cars are parking. So I'm not sure how much more of an effort it is to get closer to Kavanaugh if we decide to approve the sweeping requiring people to move.
Correct, and we will obviously, or we will look at that and be looking at it as part of that process.
Okay.
We generally look at the whole area. Part of what we want to do is as a first response, can we park every other, on the other side of the street, alternate times? And we look at all those options and try to also determine where those cars might go, and do they go into the neighborhood or do they bother other people? So we look at all of that, and we'll bring that back to the council.
Okay. So a lot of the reasoning behind why I decided it was a good idea to have a sweeping subcommittee is because we do get a lot of complaints about the street sweepers not doing their job and just literally driving down the middle of the road. I did an experiment before I just asked the committee to be launched. I had a neighbor, I don't know, a few houses down, had a Dreyer's ice cream half-gallon container, and it had been in his curb for 3 weeks. I think it was 3 or 4 weeks. I kept walking by just as an experiment to see if it was going to get picked up. Never got picked up because he never moves his car. So that's a problem that a lot of people are seeing. They're seeing trash collecting in little areas. So I thought this would be a really great opportunity for us to try to amend some of the areas that we do have trouble with. One of the ideas I came up with in the subcommittee was these particular hotspot areas where I hear a lot of complaints from the residents on, is that we can request an RFP to go out where we're sweeping every other week, the first and third week, whatever it is, but twice monthly, but weekly arterial roads and weekly through these hotspot areas. And what we can do is on week 1, we can sweep one side of Montcliff Drive, and then the following week, we can sweep the other side, because the street sweeper will just be on the arterials anyway. It's not that big of a deal for him to just sidestep a little bit. So these streets will be swept every week. It'll just be one side of the street one week, one side of the street the other week. And that way these cars, the homes, they're not as impacted trying to find places to park while the streets get swept. But the point is we're paying the street sweeper to sweep these roads, so they should be sweeping the roads. So you did some experiments on a couple of streets where we did that with the enforcement, and it was very effective. One side of the street one week, one side the other week. So I think it would be a really good idea that in the motion I'd like to make, I would like to propose that with these hotspot streets. So I'd like to direct staff to look at bidding out the contract, whether or not we choose to go with, the Tri-City option, or if we go with our own, we can bid out both scenarios to see which one would be most cost effective. But I would like to propose that we go for an RFP for a bi-weekly service with weekly arterials, and then the hotspot areas will be swept every week. One will be week 1, and the other side of the street would be week 2.
Okay, my question on that, are we putting signs up that we're actually having this side?
Yes,
So
that would include
sign-
signage and enforcement.
Okay, I'll support the motion, but I too agree with Andy. Andy, I'm agreeing with you. I think that we as a city should be bifurcated from the other cities. I don't want a joint venture in with Laguna Hills or Mission Viejo or Santa Margarita. I think that our city is unique to ourselves, and so I think that we put out the bid for ourselves. Thank you.
Would it be possible? Could we possibly bid out both scenarios to see which one would be saving us more money? Would that make sense to do that, or what would staff recommend?
If I may, bid out, you mean just alone and then with the other 3?
Yeah.
I can't speak for the other cities, but if we were going to do that, I think they'd just say, forget it, we'll just do our own thing. If we start playing the game, because what if we come in expensive and they come in lower, then we look foolish. We should have gone with all 3. So I think they would expect us, if we were going to go through that effort, because it does take effort to get with the other cities and create a similar spec package and all that. It takes some effort to do that. So I would suggest, if we're going to go through with it, go through with it. If not, let's make sure we give enough notice, and that's why we're asking for some direction so all the cities can be prepared.
I'll second the motion if we just put out it for ourselves.
Okay. The other question I have is regarding the concept that Martin Henderson proposed as a pre-runner. Do street sweeping services have that, where they have somebody come out and move the garbage out into the street for the street sweeper to come by? How does that, is that possible?
Extremely expensive. So they don't have that. It's gone mechanical, for obvious reasons. We have our own crews that go and work the hot spots. We have certain hot spots that they'll go through, and they clean up the trash because of the cars.
Okay.
But to have somebody riding with and essentially walking and sweeping how many miles of city and have to work for that, we can certainly look into that. But that would be expensive. If that's something council wants us to explore, we'd have to figure out the timing and how we get a laborer to do that safely and regularly.
It's an interesting concept. I
It
mean,
is a very interesting
and it would get
concept.
the streets clean, which is what we're trying to
But
do.
but I think the signage would do the same thing, because the fact is, right now we have them going down the middle of the street because you have cars parked on both sides of the street. So I think the signage would be a large step in the right direction. So your motion included just our city, and
I would be happy considering just our city. I know that
I second the motion.
there were previous discussions among council members, I'm not sure which ones, that thought it would be a good idea to do the Tri-City. I believe Councilman Robinson, it was his proposal. So I could go either way.
Didn't that come out of the committee? Or am I misunderstanding that?
Yes, the committee, when you met, you agreed that you wanted to go out with the other cities.
Yeah, and it was really Robinson wanting to try to get as good of a deal as possible when we were.
Correct.
So the fact is, they charge you by the linear foot that you go, and so the fact is, it's not going to be any beneficial to us to have Mission Viejo. And the fact is that when at one time, we used to share services with supervising sergeants on call on Mission Viejo, Santa Margarita, and Lake Forest. Well, then you got jockeying where he's spending more time. I think that we just focus on Lake Forest and keep it within Lake Forest.
Public comment.
I realize public comment is closed, but there was a couple of errors made, so I just wanted to correct them. I'll fill out a card later. My name is Jim Gardner. I'm a resident of Lake Forest. The comment about the pre-sweeping, in fact, my HOA does that. It's the guy with a blower, and he precedes the sweeping, and they do all our streets that way. And we do it every second street. So, in fact, it is a common practice, and we have 1,700 homes that we do that only in the HOA streets. So you could talk to Julie, and she can give you the information on the costs of doing that. So it is done, and it becomes effective for the other reasons that you've already talked about. The other thing that you're unaware of is because when I was mayor, I was originally approached from the mayor pro tem in Mission Viejo, and although Andy's right that each city has different, the rationale behind the joint project or the joint billing was that they would still give a quote for each city independently. But the fact that the guy would be down here from whoever it was, or whoever the company is, and he's down here and doing his day in Mission Viejo, he could pop over to Lake Forest. So there might be a decrease in costs because the equipment was here. It wasn't the idea that whatever the bid was, each city would pay that bid. So the original idea from the Mission Viejo people, when they approached me, was each city get its own bid, but then on top of that, see the discount that would happen by everybody being involved because the equipment is here. So, 2 clarifications.
Thank you. So from a timing perspective, what's the harm in getting the 3 bids? And if we don't like it, then everyone goes their own way. Is there time to do that?
I think it's just based on what the council would like to see happen. I mean, right now, I think the subcommittee discussion was pursuing, a joint bid. And so I think though that if you saw as long as it was bid, so it's individual and a joint, you'd have that option.
I would like to do that. I think it makes a lot of sense, at least for us to just keep our options open, and then the council can decide which one that they want to do. But, if the mayor pro tem of Mission Viejo, that was their original idea, was to have 3 separate bids and then come in together and see it.
So Mr. Wheeler, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that the ad hoc committee has opined on that, if you recall, and really what the opinion came back with when we talked about this several months ago was bid it out together but each city would hold their own contract. So we'd have our own bids. The idea would be the cities would agree to go with the lowest bidder, and so they'd bid the same rate, but we'd be guaranteeing however many miles at it, 500 miles of linear, and hopefully we get economies of scale. So that was the idea behind that,
Mhm.
where we'd commit all 3 cities or 2 or 1, depending on.
But it would be
what
our
those
own
cities would do.
separate contract.
We would hold our own separate contract then, so we wouldn't have to deal with customer service from complaints from Mission Viejo and vice versa.
So it's just negotiating powers that we're looking
It's
at.
merely a bid together.
Yeah, well, I think that makes a lot of sense. Why wouldn't you explore the economy of scale?
Yeah.
And see where that tells you, and if it doesn't work, then don't pursue it. So I think that's the best flexibility you can build into it. Okay.
Just add one thing, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Dovetail on what Mr. Gardner said, in my research I gave, the cost analysis of the truck, things like that. When I found out that these vehicles, these trucks are CNG filled, so it's not like you can park them down here. There's only 2 CNG fueling stations nearby. One's Laguna Niguel, it's full. Allen uses a yard up in Santa Ana. It takes 12 hours to refuel that. So when that driver drops it off at 5, he hooks it up. It takes 12 hours for that thing to refuel. So it's not like a diesel truck, you go up and you pump 100 gallons in it. They refuel at 5, and at 5 the next morning, it's ready to go for a full day. So to say that equipment's down here, it's in Santa Ana. You got to go to a specific yard, fire regulations, all that, because it's CNG, and it takes 12 hours to fuel that truck. So it's another variable to put in. So Mr. Garner made good things, but again, in my analysis, what I learned is that truck is up in Santa Ana. It is a designated CNG lot.
Thank you. Well, regardless, they're going to come up with a per mile price or whatever it is, wherever they get fuel or whatever else they use, it's going to be baked into whatever that number is regardless. So I like the flexibility of individually or collectively, we have that choice up ahead. So I'm in favor of that. I don't want to lose an opportunity to enjoy the economy of scale. So I'm not sure where that is, but I don't think that's consistent with the motion that was been put out on the floor.
I'll take a friendly substitution. We can give.
Yeah, I move we proceed as outlined with the
Yeah.
individual or collective bid option available to us to consider at the appropriate time.
And if I can just make a friendly amendment, can we also in the RFP, just to throw out there, or however would be the low-cost way of doing like a pre-runner to make sure that somebody is blowing the garbage out into the streets, just to get an idea of how much it would cost. And at this point, we don't even know. It doesn't have to be part of the RFP. We can a la carte that out just to get an idea of how much it would cost.
We can certainly do that. Are you talking just known hotspots in the city, or all 400 lane miles of the city?
I think just the hottest hot spots. I mean, not the parts that we're requiring the movement, but there are other areas that you guys are going through
Absolutely.
regularly and sweeping out. So
And sometimes we do that with our right now we do that with our public works maintenance crews, not associated with the street sweeper. So there's different ways we can do that. So
Yeah.
if that's an issue, we can take that back and figure out how that is, whether we want to put it in there or recommend putting it in the RFP,
Yeah.
or recommend doing it with our own crews, and we can play with that and talk to our sweeper and explore that option.
would that be a friendly
if
amendment?
Council wants us to explore that
Council?
option.
Okay. Did you guys get all that? Okay, so that's the motion, and
And just to clarify then, the hotspots that are identified in there, but obviously those can move and those can go away and come back. So I like to think that this is not tying the hands and forevermore. If
Correct.
those areas are addressed, we'll move on to the next hotspot.
Yeah, the hotspots really are identified by neighborhoods.
Right.
They identify themselves.
Yeah, I just didn't want somebody to think that, oh, forevermore.
Yeah, it's just
that's
us.
never going to change, because it will change, and that's appropriate. So, all right,
okay.
we have clear direction,
He
said with optimism.
I'm sorry, did I hear clear direction on the reducing it to 2 times a month?
That was my proposal. Twice a month, weekly arterials, weekly hotspot areas with alternating every.
Thank you.
Okay. Is that clear? Everyone, please vote.
Motion passes unanimously, 4-0, with Councilmember Robinson absent.
Thank you very much. City Manager's report.
Mayor and members of the council, I'd like to inform the community that the draft environmental impact report for the Nicase project is posted on the city's website. People can review that. If they have questions, they can certainly call Marie Luna, who is our project manager for that project here at the city. And the city is accepting comments on the draft EIR until October 3rd. So again, if you'd like to review that, it is posted on the city's website.
That's it? All right. Councilmember Basil.
All right. First of all, I'm really happy that we're going to be rushing through for the Boys and Girls Club to look at that, because it's a really vital program for the city. So thank you for Mayor Pro Tem Otaziti for suggesting that. That's great. Okay, now I don't usually make long comments at the end, but I hope you'll indulge me for a few minutes. My husband's company has restructured, so my family is going to be relocating. And unfortunately, this means that I will have to step down from City Council. My plan is August 31st to be my last day. This was never my intention to leave office early, but oftentimes God has other plans for us, and He doesn't always clue us in. But I have been honored by the overwhelming support that I've received from the entire Lake Forest community in electing me to City Council, and I trust the trust you have given me has been well placed. I am very pleased with the work that I've done in such a short amount of time. I know I've done my best for all Lake Forest residents, and I always worked for the best interest of the community. I just want to highlight a couple of accomplishments, although as I was going on the night, I kept writing more and more. There's a lot. Some of the things that I'm most proud of are getting term limits on the ballot. I was instrumental in helping to resolve the Lake One lawsuit. If I hadn't gotten involved, we'd probably still be litigating. I fought to get a much-needed crosswalk on Rockfield. It was my initiative that helped get the Bacon-Trabuco intersection improved. I helped to create the Parking and Traffic Commission. I got the much-needed Saddleback Ranch road improvements completed. I helped push along Veterans Park. I was instrumental in setting up the HOA Roundtable. We paid off the Alton Parkway bond and saved the city $1 million. And tonight, Portola Center Park, hooray. And I also really enjoyed my time serving on the Orange County Fire Authority Board. But what I enjoyed most while I was on the council was helping people and solving problems. My favorite was my weekly office hours, that I could go and visit staff and residents come in. Just last week there must have been 10 people. Almost every week it was like a revolving door. I just pick up the phone, call staff, they come in, we solve problems. It was awesome. So I would like to thank city staff. During my tenure, you guys have been amazing, and we couldn't have done as much as we got done if you guys hadn't been there helping. I am confident my fellow council members will respect my decision and privacy, and I wish the council and the city nothing but success moving forward. I have found working for the residents of Lake Forest a great honor and privilege, and I know the work I've done during my tenure has made Lake Forest a better place for all of our families. Thank you to everyone, and God bless all of you.
Councilmember Voits.
I want to say as a council member, thank you for your service to our community. And your outreach and ability to solve problems, I think, was an added bonus to us in the city of Lake Forest. And the fact is, coming to the creek, you forgot to talk about the creek widening, cleaning that you helped in my district, but the fact that you were there, and they very much respect you, and thank you for that. So thank you for your service to our community. On another note, this last weekend, as many of you know, I work for the county, and I'm district director for Supervisor Wagner, but in doing so, I spent a lot of time at concerts in other cities. And I gotta say, out of all the concerts I've been to this whole summer, this summer at Lake Forest Sports Park this last Saturday was an outstanding concert, and I want to say thank you to the staff. You know, as much as we talk about all the things that we're getting done up here, it's really you guys are actually doing the legwork, and so you know, we shine because of you guys, and so thank you. And I gotta say that concert this last weekend was just outstanding. Everybody there just had a blast, and so what a great way to end the summer with Creedence Clearwater and Eagles. So it was a great concert, and everybody was up dancing and jumping around, and it was an outstanding. Out of all the cities I've been to, this was by far the best. And so thank you to all you guys. And so we do have a great place to live, work, and play. Thank you. Nothing further.
Thank you very much. Mayor Pro Tem.
Well, I just wanted to bid farewell to Councilwoman Basil. I'm so surprised but happy for you. I think there's no doubt that anyone in the community knows that you are passionate about helping others in the community and that you genuinely care. So wish you all the best. Otherwise, I have nothing else to say. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I wish you all the best in your future endeavors, and thank you for your service. Attended events. I know I missed a meeting. I was up in beautiful Mammoth at the time, so my apologies. We have had 3 ad hoc meetings with Mayor Pro Tem and I, along with staff. So we appreciate all the staff's good work on that, and we continue to make good progress looking at the financial matters for the city. I participated in getting a briefing from Saddleback Valley Unified on its facilities master plan. Participated in Eagle Court of Honor, which is always a pleasure. Attended National Night Out. Lake Forest Chamber function at the sports park, and several ribbon cuttings. So, been busy. I want to take a moment to adjourn tonight's meeting, and this comes from a communication I received from Councilmember Robinson. He forwarded some information to me. It's a young man whose name is Sean Yackley. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. Sean is an El Toro High School student, 17-year-old, lived in Lake Forest, who played baseball. He passed away after fighting cancer for many, many months. Friends of their family report he's a wonderful, smart, funny kid who loved baseball, basketball, and was fiercely supportive of his friends and family. He leaves behind a twin sister, older brother, and his mom and dad, Laura and Arnie Yackley. The entire El Toro High School baseball team was devastated, but are joyful in the knowledge that Sean was a believer and is now in our Father's arms. And those are words forwarded to me from Councilmember Robinson, from a friend. So with that, I'd like to adjourn tonight's meeting in memory of Sean Yackley, Lake Forest resident. Thank you.